Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had swapped lives part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story weednshroomz from 𝐿3. So let's start the video. Izuku didn't know where he was. Well, he did. But not really physically. He was in his 8th grade classroom, listening to his teacher explain how the application process would work. As the students mapped out the high schools they hope to enroll in, your parents should be filling out most of the paperwork, the teacher explained. But it's important to understand how the transaction works. By now, all of you should be waiting for your high school of choice to either accept or deny your enrollment. Any performance-based schools like 𝐎𝐸 should have already finished tryouts, or whatever they call them. A girl with neon blue hair and a few scales spotted over her neck and forearms raised her hand. She started speaking before she was even called on. Is it true a high school can really reject a student that's applying? Isn't that kinda mean? Yeah, what if someone doesn't get accepted to any school at all? Chimed in someone else, who sat off to the left of Izuku. A kid behind him snorted a laugh. PFFT. I bet that's gonna be Deku. There's no way that loser is going to get accepted anywhere. Izuku froze in his spot. He was used to this, wasn't he? This was a daily occurrence of his middle school life, ducking his head and biting his tongue when Katsuki would bark a mean comment at him. Except that voice wasn't Katsuki's. Izuku didn't recognize it at all. Oi, shut the fuck up, Katsuki snapped, kicking the mean kid's desk. Izuku is gonna be fine. He and I are going to 𝐎𝐸, ain't that right, Zuku? Izuku physically started shivering. Sure, it had been about a year since he was in middle school, but he knew it was nothing like this. Katsuki didn't act like this, not in the present day, and definitely not back in middle school. This must be some sort of lucid dream, Izuku reckoned. Katsuki tilted his head, eyes narrowed with concern. Izuku, you good, dude? Yeah, Izuku sputtered. I'm fine. For the rest of the class, Katsuki sent concerned looks his way, while Izuku pinched himself in hopes of waking up. When the final bell rang, Katsuki practically tackled Izuku. As they exited the classroom, he swung his arm over Izuku's shoulders, a devilish smile painted across his porcelain face. Wanna come over to mine and play Mario Kart? Katsuki asked, still slumped over Izuku. As they began to walk home, Izuku had trouble breathing. This dream was going on a bit too long. Your place, he echoed. But he squeezed his eyes shut, cursing himself for stuttering. Hadn't he gotten rid of that stupid, godawful stutter when he got into 𝐎𝐸? Why was he reverting back into his pitiful middle school self? Was it just part of the dream mechanics? Izuku really didn't want to think about it. He had to find a way to wake up before he had a panic attack from middle school. Katsuki being so nice to him. Katsuki unhooked his arm from Izuku's shoulders, staring at him with furrowed eyebrows. You sure you're okay? He asked. I know I'm not that best at feelings and shit, but if something's bothering you, you can tell me. Tears pricked in his eyes, his breath hitched in his throat. Why was this happening to him? What the hell was going on? Katsuki grabbed Izuku's wrist, pulling both of them to a stop. Izuku had never seen Katsuki so angry at something other than, well, Izuku, everything about this was too strange. Was it that bastard Tasaki? Katsuki seethed. Did he say something to you, Simon? We're gonna go kick his ass right now, Wakaken. No, wait, Izuku squealed as Katsuki started dragging him away by the wrist. Katsuki came to a halt again, this time more pissed than before. Then what is it? Why won't you tell me? It's not I just Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat, tucking his hands into his pockets. As he took a step back, he took a deep breath to steady himself. And when he was sure he wouldn't pass out, he spoke. Look, I think I just need some space, okay? With high school applications coming up and everything. Katsuki nodded, also stepping back to put some more distance between them. Right, yeah, that's cool, I guess. He sounded so sad, as if Izuku just broke up with him or something. You're still going to 𝐎𝐸 with me, right? When we both get accepted? Izuku paused. He was shocked his mind could even conjure up Katsuki saying something like this. He was so different, so kind and patient, still with his usual flair and overwhelming determination to get what he wanted. He treated Izuku as a friend, a partner in crime against the world, rather than a competitor or a fork in the road. Hearing Katsuki's concern for him, hell, just hearing him say his name made Izuku want to cry out of habit. He pushed the tears back. He didn't trust Katsuki, not even the unusually caring dream version, to see him cry without bullying him for it. Izuku left Katsuki's question unanswered. It didn't really matter, did it? This was just a dream, a sweet, sweet dream that made him want to cry gallons upon gallons of happy, relieved tears. But a dream nonetheless. This is a fucking nightmare, Izuku thought as Katsuki shoved him back into the brick wall. School had just ended, but it only took a second for Izuku to realize things were off. There were two possibilities. He was either having a very vivid nightmare, or he died and went to hell. Either way, Izuku wanted out now. Look at this quirkless loser, Katsuki cackled. I think he's gonna cry, Tasaki mocked. He drove his knee up, ramming the bone into Izuku's bruised abdomen, knocking the wind out of him. You think you're gonna get into 𝐎𝐸, Deku? Katsuki spat. Ain't no way in hell. Izuku wiped his bloody nose with the back of his hand, smearing the red over his skin, in an attempt to stop it from dripping onto his tattered uniform. "Oh, shut the fuck up, cat," Izuku scoffed, fighting to stand up straight. "You can cut the shit, okay? I don't know what the hell is wrong with you today." But Hashige threw a right hook and hit Izuku square in the jaw, knocking him back against the wall. It took nearly every fiber of strength in his body just to stay standing after the back of his head smashed against the brick. "Don't you dare fucking talk to him like that." Hashige snapped his chubby face inches from Izuku's as he fisted his collar. "Ya hear me? You're a quirkless nobody." Izuku cut him off with a right hook of his own, probably 3 times as strong as the one that left a nasty bruise on his left cheek. Hashige practically flew backwards, smacking his backside against the concrete as he skirted away. But Izuku wasn't done. He marched forward, dropping his red sneaker directly onto Hashige's thick neck. Making the boy choke on his own oxygen, Izuku gave his heel a twist for good measure, then leaned down to taunt the boy. "This quirkless nobody is about to commit murder. If he doesn't hear an apology." Izuku sneered. Hashige sputtered some discriminatory quirkist nonsense, his squinted eyes flying open as he glanced around for help. Katsuki and Tasaki stood like statues, completely frozen in time. It was like Izuku was a completely different person. "All right, let me break it down for you," Izuku said, adding more pressure onto Hashige's throat. He crushed the boy's Adam's apple beneath the heel of his sneaker. "You're going to say you're sorry before I get to 3, or else I'm going to fucking kill you. Ya hear me?" Izuku mocked. 1, 2, sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. "Forgive me, I beg you please." Izuku smirked and removed his foot from Hashige's neck. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted away from the freckled boy, who wore an unusually friendly smile on his beaten and bruised face. Izuku turned to Tasaki, his eyes dark with malice and combating his friendly grin. "May I please have a word with him? If you don't mind, of course." Tasaki dashed out of there in less than a millisecond. Katsuki swallowed the lump in his throat as Izuku approached him. "Where the fuck did you learn how to do that, Deku?" Katsuki asked. Izuku's smile dropped. "That's not my name. Answer my fucking question." Katsuki seethed. Izuku didn't back down. He narrowed his eyes, stepping dangerously close to the blonde. "Call me by my real fucking name, and I might consider entertaining this bullshit facade of yours." Katsuki rolled his eyes and took a step back, desperate to hide his fear. "The hell are you talking about, you psycho nerd?" Izuku scoffed. "This really must be a fucking fever dream," he muttered. "Whatever, I'll figure it out by myself. Go fuck yourself, Katsuki." As Izuku began to walk away, Katsuki caught his wrist, feeling his heartbeat in every inch of his body weight. He blurted, "Hold on, you didn't answer my question." Izuku snapped his wrist away, rubbing at the bruise forming around his left eye. "I learned everything I know from you, asshole. You taught me to protect myself." "I what?" Katsuki said. "I never, like I said." Izuku muttered. "I'm probably dreaming. Don't worry about it. It's my fucking problem, right? Not yours. Now leave me the hell alone." Izuku didn't want to be left alone, but he was terrified of this strange world. He was in. Everything was off first. There was no such thing as All Might, which in and of itself made Izuku want to die. His room was still filled, every shelf and every inch of every wall covered with posters. But none of them were All Might. There was Spider-Man, Batman, System of a Down, Rob Zombie, Nirvana, Mercu, and even Crimson Riot posters. But All Might's face was nowhere to be seen. Izuku even did a quick Google search to make sure he wasn't going crazy. All Might did not exist. Okay, Izuku thought, maybe this is just a really weird and specific dream. But even after he forced himself to fall asleep, he still woke up 2 hours later in the same place. No All Might, just Serge Tankian's face from 1998 staring at him from across the room. Lovely. Izuku rolled out of bed and checked his phone. It was almost 5 o'clock in his normal house. His mom would have lost her mind if Izuku stayed cooped up in his room for longer than an hour. He usually only stayed in here for homework, or because he was sick. Other than sleeping, obviously. Izuku made his way downstairs, now curious about what his mom was doing. He wished he stayed in his room. In the living room was Katsuki lounging on the couch with Izuku's mother. They were sharing a bowl of popcorn, watching the Lego Batman movie. "Hey honey," Inko greeted her son. "Katsuki stopped by after school and told me you weren't feeling well, so I thought it was best to let you sleep a while. How are you feeling?" "Excuse me," Izuku choked out. "Oh my god, I think I'm going to be sick." "See, Auntie," Katsuki muttered to Inko. "I told you something's wrong with him." "Oh my poor baby," Inko mewed, helping Izuku to the bathroom. "Have you been taking your sertraline, love?" What are you talking about?" Izuku squeaked. I don't know what you're talking about. This is all wrong, Mom." "This isn't Katsuki. Can you call the doctor?" Inko said, letting her son use her as a crutch as she beelined to the bathroom. "Hurry please." Izuku was still hovering over the toilet bowl when the doctor showed up 20 minutes later. She acted like she knew Izuku for years, but in reality Izuku had never seen that lady in his entire life. "Izuku, sweetheart, can you tell me what's wrong?" the doctor asked as his mom rubbed his back. Izuku had finished throwing up a few minutes ago, and now he just kneeled on the tiled floor, swaying under the yellow fluorescent lights. "I don't know," Izuku muttered. He tried to ignore Katsuki, who stood in the doorway, his ruby red eyes filled with unfamiliar concern. Izuku was so confused it was making him physically sick. He didn't know why the new environment was affecting him so negatively when overall it was much better than his real life. For every birthday he could remember, Izuku had wished for Katsuki to be his best friend, rather than his tormentor. Yet here he was in a dream where his wishes literally came true. And he was throwing up his guts on the bathroom floor. Izuku was starting to think this wasn't actually a dream. He seems to be suffering from extreme delirium. The doctor whispered to 𝐭𝐽𝐻. I think we should get him to the hospital. Delirium, 𝐭𝐽𝐻 echoed. What do you mean? Think of it like a panic attack. But with confusion instead. This could be caused by anything from certain medicine side effects to low calcium to worsening lung or liver disease, the doctor explained. I'm guessing it's something to do with his medication. But we're better safe than sorry. 𝐭𝐽𝐻 nodded, brushing the tears out of her green eyes. She turned to Katsuki as she helped Izuku to his feet. You should get home, hon, she said. Katsuki shook his head. I'm going with you guys. If Izuku is sick, I've got to be there. 𝐭𝐽𝐻 pursed her lips together. All right, I'll allow it. But you have to call your parents and let them know. Katsuki nodded, taking his place at Izuku's side. As they escorted him to the car, Izuku sat in his room, staring at the ridiculous decorations covering every inch of the place. He almost threw up as he entered, seeing some random man's face, plastered up everywhere it could fit: posters, plushies, blankets, pillows, even the goddamn rug. The words Plus Ultra accompanied the yellow, blue, and red theme. And after looking it up on Google, Izuku learned that this man's name was All Might. He was the #1 pro hero in Japan for the past 2 decades. Izuku's first thought was that the man had to be unbelievably old. What kind of pro hero kept working after turning 40? The whole point was to put your life on the line for the public's safety. And in exchange, you got to retire early with money and fame. This guy must have been the biggest narcissist to want to stay in the spotlight all this time when he could be on his own private island or something. And clearly the version of Izuku that lived here was falling for it big time. Symbol of peace, Izuku scoffed, ripping down one of the pictures and crumbling it into a ball. Give me a fucking break. He shot it into the All Might themed trash can in the corner. This had been the deciding factor. There's no way this was just a bad nightmare. Izuku had somehow gotten transported to another reality, one where Katsuki was a fucking asshole and Izuku was a total pushover. Usually when Izuku was bored, he'd call up Katsuki and they'd play Mario Kart until their parents told them to eat something or go to sleep. Now in this strange new reality, Izuku literally had nothing to do. This version of him apparently had no friends, which was pathetic, and no good books where there wasn't All Might merch on his shelves. There were notebooks. Sighing, Izuku decided to flip through the pages. It caught him a little off guard that all the writing was in Izuku's handwriting in his own notebooks. Back in his reality, Katsuki usually did the sketches and occasionally jotted down some notes. Then Izuku would go in and be more thorough and fill in important information that Katsuki missed. Here, well, it was just Izuku, all of it. It was impressive. But the boy must be so lonely. Izuku couldn't remember a time when his Katsuki wasn't by his side. Whether it was playing video games, beating up bullies, getting caught sneaking out together, or even attending anti-quirkism protests, this Izuku just had himself. And this creepy All Might guy, which he had to admit was making him pretty sick to his stomach. As he continued to read, as Izuku flipped through the journals, he stumbled across quite a few paragraphs describing brutal torture methods. This reality Izuku wanted to try on Katsuki. Okay, Izuku laughed nervously. Maybe he's not a total pushover. A knock on his bedroom door snapped Izuku out of his thoughts. Izuku, honey, 𝐭𝐽𝐻 said, slowly pushing the door open. She offered a gentle, weary smile. She didn't comment on the bruises scattered over her son's freckled face. Are you all right? You've been cooped up in your room since you got home from school, Izuku snickered. Besides the ass beating, I got yeah, good. 𝐭𝐽𝐻 shock was written across her face. Apparently this version didn't curse. Whoops, originally Izuku didn't either. But he could only hang around Katsuki for so long before the bad words weaseled their way into his vocabulary. I'm sorry, Izuku said, just a bit stressed. Don't worry, Mom, everything is fine. 𝐭𝐽𝐻 pursed her lips into a frown, her eyebrows sinking as her mind raced. If you say so, just know I'm always here for you if you want to talk. Right? Yeah, Izuku said a little too awkwardly. That's cool, I guess, thanks. 𝐭𝐽𝐻 gave him a strange look before slowly leaving, closing the door behind her. When her footsteps died down, Izuku jumped up and locked the door. He sat back down at the desk, and suddenly his phone buzzed in his back pocket. It was from an unknown number telling him to open his window. Izuku squinted at the message, completely fucking baffled, before he could even respond. There was a smacking sound against his window. He whipped his head in that direction to see a pebble hit the glass, making the same annoyingly cliché sound. Izuku pushed the window open, peering down at none other than Bakugo Katsuki, preparing to chuck another pebble at his window. What the hell, Romeo? Izuku laughed. Why are you throwing pebbles at my window? Do you know what year it is? Katsuki scowled through his embarrassed blush. Well, I'm not gonna just waltz into your fucking house, he cried. Just text me. How old are you? 95. Shut up and stop laughing at me, fucking quirkless piss boy. Dude, you literally threw pebbles at my window like a love-struck teenager, Izuku teased. If anyone is a piss boy, I can assure you it's not me. Are you gonna let me in, or what, asshole? Izuku gasped, dramatically obsessing over how flustered he had the blonde, who was shifting awkwardly in the grass. Sneaking into my room, Cat, you really are quite the bad boy in this reality. Izuku pushed his window all the way up, popped out the screen, and stepped out of the way. Katsuki took the hint and used his quirk to propel himself up to the second floor, ducking and rolling into the All Might themed room. "We need to talk," Katsuki snapped, brushing the newly formed wrinkles out of his clothes. Izuku put the screen back in place and closed his window. "Really, I thought you came for a makeout session," he teased. "I hate this stupid sassy side of you," Katsuki growled. "It's annoying as fuck." "You know what else is annoying?" Izuku snapped, waking up in a whole different reality, getting my shit rocked by my best friend, who apparently hates me, and finding my room decked out with images of this weird, unnaturally muscular poster boy that's fucking annoying. Katsuki shook his head, then pinched the bridge of his nose. "Slow down, Deku. Didn't I tell you that's not my name? Don't you ever learn? Cat, to be fair, Cat isn't my name either." Katsuki sneered. "Usually you call me Kaken, and I call you Deku. That's how things work around here." Izuku laughed bitterly, crossing his arms over his chest as he sized up the blonde. "All right, well, no matter what dimension you're in, one thing is certain: the whole world doesn't revolve around Bakugo." "Fucking Katsuki, grow up." Katsuki was quiet after that. "Here's what I know. 1 second, I'm sitting in class at UE listening to Mr. Aizawa talk about signing up for work studies, and the next I'm back in 8th grade getting picked on by some loser version of my best friend. I don't know how I got here, but I think I'm going to swan dive off the roof if I have to be here any longer." Katsuki paled. What? Izuku waved him off. "Inside joke between me and my Katsuki. Some quirkus douchebag told me to kill myself like that, and I have been making light of it ever since." "What? Don't tell me you said that to your Izuku again." Katsuki was silent. Izuku grimaced. "Dude, you are the fucking worst." "I didn't mean it," Katsuki snapped back. I don't know, it slipped, I guess." "I bet he didn't know that." Izuku grumbled. "If your Izuku is anything like me, then he takes everything you say to heart. That's why he was at the top of the building that night, though you probably wouldn't know that." "What are you talking about?" Katsuki asked. "What building?" Izuku narrowed his eyebrows. "Well, in my reality, after that kid told me to kill myself, I actually tried it. Thank God my Katsuki found me on the roof to talk me down." Katsuki shook his head. "I mean, my Izuku wouldn't do that. He's not suicidal." Izuku snorted. He tossed Katsuki a notebook, not a hero analysis, but a diary filled with paragraphs about how much he hated himself. Honestly, Izuku wasn't surprised to see him writing those kinds of things. If it weren't for his Katsuki, Izuku probably would've ended up like this too. But his Katsuki found him, and they talked to Inko together, and got Izuku a psychiatrist and a counselor, and started him on antidepressants. This Izuku didn't have that luxury. "I can't believe this shit," Katsuki muttered. "He was gonna kill himself all because yup," Izuku answered, popping the P. "If that weird old man didn't find him, he'd probably be dead." "Ironic, weird old man," Katsuki hissed. "Don't talk about All Might like that. He's the #1 hero, best hero of all time." Izuku couldn't help but roll his eyes. "You've gotta be kidding me. Is everyone here brainwashed by that blonde doofus? The fuck are you talking about?" "Where I come from," Izuku explained, "All Might doesn't exist. I guess that's why my Katsuki isn't a fucking prick. He didn't have this role model forcing toxic masculinity down his throat as he was growing up. And that's probably why I don't have an inferiority complex. This All Might guy was never around for me to compare myself to. And look how much cooler I am." Katsuki shook his head. "All Might saved millions of lives." Congrats," Izuku laughed. "What does he want, a fucking cookie? That's what heroes are expected to do. I could name a dozen heroes that save lives. And don't push negative stereotypes on the general public." Katsuki scowled at him. "No, you fucking can't. Shut up. Let's see, there's 𝗵𝘃𝗏 best genius present, Mike Selkie." Okay. I get it," Katsuki grumbled. "Whatever, let's get back to the matter at hand. I want my Izuku back." "PFFT. You mean your human stress ball?" Izuku sneered. "Yeah, I think I'm gonna kick your ass a few times before I go home, just so you think twice before abusing him again." "It's not ab." "Look at my face, Cat. You almost broke my fucking nose. Are you seriously going to tell me that's not abuse?" Katsuki shut his mouth. "You need to be nicer to him. He might act like he can take it all, but eventually, he's going to lose it. If you really don't care about his personal well-being, then think about it this way. Do you want to be the reason he turns into a villain after reading through these notebooks? Jesus Christ, you better turn it around or sleep with one eye open." "He wouldn't," Izuku scowled. "He would. I'm serious. Stop being a jackass. He loves you and you're abusing him. You're lucky he's even still alive." Again, Katsuki stayed silent. Izuku scoffed and headed to the door. "I need to see my doctor, see if there's anything she can do about this migraine." "What, your doctor?" Katsuki blurted. "You don't have a doctor?" Izuku frowned. "Shit, I forgot about that." "Well, guess I'm going to the hospital." "Then Simon, we're going to go tell my mom that I just threw up my liver." "What, I'm not going with you?" Yes, you are. I need someone to confirm my story. Now hurry up, Kaken." "Let's go." "Well, this is a bit confusing," the doctor told Inko and Izuku's psychiatrist. "His records have him marked as quirkless, but the tests came back and say he has a super strength quirk, hence the healing broken bones in his right arm. It seems his body isn't strong enough to handle all the power." "Also, you said he's on sertraline?" Inko nodded. "He has been taking it for a year and a half now," she said. "Well, there are no traces of it in his system," the doctor answered, "so he hasn't been taking it for at least a month." The adults continued to talk about how odd Izuku's situation was while Izuku awkwardly filled Katsuki in on his situation. The blonde sat as close to Izuku as possible with the uncomfortable plastic chair pulled up right beside the crinkly hospital bed. They had been there for at least 3.5 hours. Now so to recap, Katsuki muttered, "You're from a different reality timeline dimension or whatever where me and you aren't friends, and also some guy named All Might gaslit you into eating his hair, so you wouldn't be quirkless anymore." Izuku nodded. "It sounds pretty bad when you say it like that though. All Might isn't just some guy. And he didn't gaslight me, he's my hero, and my inspiration, yours too, right?" Katsuki pinched the bridge of his nose to force back the headache coming on. "Can you see why I might find this unsettling? What kind of creepy-ass 50-year-old man makes a 14-year-old eat his hair and push around a refrigerator at night alone on a beach?" Izuku chuckled a bit. "It's really not that bad," he says. "I think it's worth it now I've got a quirk, and you and I are attending Yuyui together." Katsuki frowned. "But we're not friends," Izuku shrugged. "We're getting there. Ugh, that's so ass. So you've been dealing with bullies all by yourself. Do you even know how to defend yourself? What the hell is your version of me doing while Tasaki and his asshole lackeys torment you?" "Tasaki 𝐒𝐻𝐸's your lackey Kaken." All the color drained from Katsuki's face. "What do you mean I bully you too?" Izuku flushed red with embarrassment. "It's not that bad, I swear." Katsuki raised his hand experimentally. And as he expected, Izuku flinched and covered his face with his forearms like he expected Katsuki to blast him or punch him or something. Katsuki sighed and took Izuku's hand in his own. "That's shitty of me," he muttered. "I can't believe I would ever do something like that, especially to you." Izuku froze. The words were so foreign to him that they almost didn't register in his mind. He didn't want Katsuki to feel bad, especially this Katsuki who had been nothing but nice to him. "Like I said, it's fine now," Izuku explained. "We're working on fixing things between us. Even if it's slow, the progress is enough for me." Katsuki nodded solemnly, rubbing circles on the back of Izuku's hand. Izuku stared at it, completely baffled. "Sorry if it's weird," Katsuki said. "My Izuku says it's calming." Izuku also didn't know Katsuki was capable of apologizing. "It's okay," he said. "He's right, it is calming." "Thanks." Another thing Katsuki said, "You don't have to have a quirk to be a good hero. There are a bunch of quirkless pro heroes in this reality. And they all kick ass. Most of them are vigilantes actually. But I think that makes them even cooler. I know you've got to deal with All Might PFFT, whatever, same thing. But seriously, you don't have to keep this power. I think you're just as badass when you're fighting quirkless. I've seen it, trust me." Izuku smiled softly, his gaze warming as Katsuki gently squeezed his hand. "And if your Katsuki is anything like me, then he cares a lot about you. He might not be good at showing it. I know I'm not though. I'm obviously better than him. That's why I kick the shit out of all the people who try to hurt you. I care about you, Izuku. You're important to me, so I know you're important to him too." Izuku sniffled. "Geez, are you gonna cry?" Katsuki chuckled. "I guess that stands across all realities. Izuku is a total crybaby, ha. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. If you want to cry, it'll be our secret. We found traces of sertraline in his bloodstream," the doctor told 𝐭, "but he doesn't seem to have a prescription. Also, the quirk that suddenly manifested a month ago is completely gone. It's like he's a whole different person." "Well, this didn't turn out how I wanted it to," Izuku grumbled. "They think I'm a drug addict." Katsuki snickered. "That's what you get, cocky bastard." Izuku smacked the blonde over the head, scowling at him. "Don't forget, I can kick your ass, cat." "Yeah, right," Katsuki grumbled. "When did quirkless people get so annoying?" "Around the same time blonde people got so fucking bratty, it'll kill you." "I'd like to see you try, boys, please," 𝐭 said. "We're talking." Katsuki and Izuku both muttered an apology. "Look, the best course of action is to find a way back before I get this Izuku into any more trouble. Since you think you're so fucking smart, how about you come up with some ideas?" "How the fuck would I know?" Katsuki snapped. "You're the idiot that got yourself into this situation." You're right. I think I remember hearing that I can go back after I kill your stupid ass boys," 𝐭 cried seriously. They muttered another apology and decided to whisper this time. "Maybe it was some kind of freaky quirk," Katsuki suggested. Izuku shook his head. "That's too predictable plot-wise. The author has got to be more creative than that." "What the fuck are you talking about?" Izuku rolled his eyes. "Meta shit, your dumbass wouldn't understand. You're so weird." "Yeah, but my cat likes it. That's gay. Open your eyes, you closeted homosexual." Nope, we are not having this conversation right now. I've had the biggest crush on my Katsuki since we were kids. And now that we're both at Yuyui and on the right track with little to no drama, I was finally gonna confess. But no, of course not. I had to get shoved into a new reality where you're a total fuck nugget." He whispered, jabbing his index finger into Katsuki's chest. Your homo problems aren't my fault," Katsuki whispered back. "That's all you. Maybe the universe decided the world didn't need any more fags." Izuku scowled. "I'm gonna let that slide because I know on the inside you're a raging homosexual." "I am not a homosexual. You watch RuPaul's Drag Race, you play Stardew Valley, and you listen to the Hamilton soundtrack in the shower. Your resting pose is with your hand on your hip. Your hero costume includes thick eyeliner, and your favorite color is orange. If you're not gay, then neither is Elton John." Katsuki pouted. "But he didn't argue. You know too much about me." And you know too much about me. Izuku beamed. Look at that, a match made in heaven. Katsuki rolled his eyes. Do you flirt this much with your Katsuki? Izuku smiled. I try. But it's a little more awkward to flirt with your real crush versus a stupid knockoff asshole version plus. He's pretty dense, at least with me. Well, he must like you a lot to put up with your mouth. Katsuki grumbled. You never shut up. Izuku froze, a blush creeping onto his cheeks. Really? Katsuki grimaced. Really? What, you think he likes me? What? Well, yeah. But I mean, Izuku's sweet smile melted into a devious smirk. You're projecting. You have a crush on your Izuku. But ass might all might, yeah, whatever, same thing. He made you believe weak people are worthless, so you felt the need to trample on Izuku. Rather than value him. Geez, you are quite the charity case. I'm going to kill you. Feisty Izuku teased. Serious? Katsuki growled. Oh no. Izuku gasped. Bad dog. Get down. Well, you're more like an angry kitten. Should I get the spray bottle? Or are you going to behave? I swear to God. All right, son, you're good to go, the doctor interrupted. Since you didn't overdose and the medication isn't illegal, there isn't much we can do. I advise you to stop taking medication that isn't prescribed to you, of course, because over time it could negatively affect your body. And of course the person giving you those meds needs to be turned into the police. But we can figure that out later. I'm sure you boys want to get home and have some dinner. It's getting late after all. Thank you so much, Dr. Inko said, for seeing us on such short notice and for being so kind. Oh, of course, Ms. Midoriya, anything for a gorgeous lady like yourself. Izuku and Katsuki both pretended to gag. Anyway, Mom, Izuku said, let's get back home. And Mrs. Midoriya, Katsuki blurted. My parents are probably wondering where I am. You didn't call them. Katsuki. Inko scolded. Katsuki shrugged. I forgot. Inko sighed. All right, let's get you back home then. Thanks again, Doctor. Goodbye. The doctor hummed dreamily. Yes, goodbye. Izuku kicked him in the shins. On the way out, Katsuki plopped down on Izuku's bed, as if it was his own, stretching out his limbs and snuggling into the crimson-red comforter. Izuku just watched him for a moment, shocked at how comfortable he looked. This version of Izuku was really living the dream. Katsuki raised an eyebrow at him. You gonna come lay down or just stand there and stare at me? He asked. Izuku's blush devoured his entire face. Sure, he muttered, crawling slowly onto the space beside Katsuki. The blonde opened his arms and Izuku beamed. Do you usually cuddle with your Deku? Katsuki glared, resting his head on top of Izuku's, twisting his fingers into the green curls at the nape of his neck. As they both got comfortable, his name is Izuku. Your name is Izuku of all people. You should know that the best. Izuku snuggled his face into Katsuki's chest to hide his embarrassment, and also to calm his erratic heartbeat. He really could get used to this version of Katsuki, saying such sweet things to him all the time. Izuku didn't know how much he needed this, until it smacked him across the face. He didn't want to leave, not now, not ever. Katsuki sighed, letting his hand fall out of Izuku's hair and rest listlessly between his shoulder blades. Izuku stayed, put his arms wrapped around Katsuki's torso, and his head pressed into the crook of his neck. To answer your question, Katsuki said, yet I do cuddle with him all the time. Actually, Izuku hummed. I wish my Kaken was like you. You make me feel so safe. Katsuki pulled Izuku even closer, pressing their bodies together under the heavy blanket. At the end of the day, me and him are the same person. And you and my Izuku are the same too. The only difference is how we were all raised. You and your Kaken were bombarded by pressure from All Might. And after Mom died. My mom didn't die, Izuku blurted. Katsuki furrowed his eyebrows. Not yours, dummy, mine. Izuku pulled back from the embrace to glance up at Katsuki, trying to find any trace of a lie or delirium. Kaken's mom isn't dead, Izuku said. She's very much alive, actually. She took me and Todoroki out for lunch the other day. Katsuki was absolutely baffled. My mom like Bakugo Mitsuki. She's alive. And who's Todoroki? Izuku waved the question away. Son of Endeavor. He's my best friend at UE. Katsuki pouted, much too dramatically, forcing his lips into a deep frown and making creases in his forehead. I can't believe this shit, he grumbled. Izuku rolled his eyes. Across all realities, you've still got the same pouty face. What's wrong? Endeavor is still around in your reality, Katsuki asked. Yeah, he's the number 2 hero right behind All Might here. He's been in prison for domestic abuse since like 8 years ago. He really messed up his firstborn son, and then his wife called the police. He's been in jail ever since. Wow. Izuku cleared his throat to hide his nervous laugh. Geez. What? Todoroki has a massive burn over his left eye. He's totally traumatized. Do you think I should talk to him about it? Katsuki scowled. Sure, PFFT. Don't be jealous. I'm not. Alrighty, anyway, what was the second thing? Dude, I'm your best friend. How the hell could you replace me with a traumatized piece of shit? Who the fuck does this Todoroki asshole think he is? Calm down and stop whining, Izuku teased. He's just a friend. No need to get your panties in a twist. Katsuki couldn't help but smirk. You sound exactly like my Izuku, he said. Izuku beamed. Really? Katsuki nodded. He's got a mouth on him for sure. He's super sassy and sarcastic. But he's also the most caring and kind person I've ever met. I guess he's the reason why I didn't turn out like your Kaken. We were there for each other. Izuku's smile practically evaporated. Tears collected in his eyes. But before Katsuki could comfort him, and ask him what was wrong. He pushed himself forward and caught the blonde in a kiss. Katsuki was patient with him. He let Izuku kiss him, placing one hand on his hip and the other cupping his jaw just below his ear. He was slow, gentle, and considerate of the tears pouring out of Izuku's closed eyes, soaking his eyelashes and cheeks. After a moment or so, when Izuku began to hyperventilate, Katsuki pulled back. "I don't want to go back," he sobbed. "Please, Kaken. I want to stay. I have to stay." Katsuki brushed Izuku's tears away with his thumbs and pressed his lips against Izuku's forehead. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "But I'm not your Kaken. I have my own Izuku. I love him." Izuku never thought that hearing Katsuki confess his feelings for him would hurt so bad. Even compared to another version of himself, Izuku's was never enough. But Katsuki continued moving. "So they were eye to eye. Your Kaken loves you." "I know he does. You just gotta find a way to break his outer shell." Izuku frowned. "How do I do that?" Katsuki's smile was damn near demonic. "I'm so glad you asked. Don't you think that's enough?" Katsuki asked, nudging Izuku's elbow. Izuku nudged him back, and in the process spilled a bit of the illegal beverage on the tiled floor. "Tch, you asshole, look what you did, Kat." "What?" Katsuki hissed. "That was you. Are you crazy? You just shoved me and made me spill adult juice all over the floor." There was an evil tint in Izuku's eyes as he poked the rabid beast before him. "Pick on someone your own size, you big bully." Katsuki's face paled. Izuku could tell he struck a nerve, which was definitely not his intention. He just wanted to tease this angry version of his best friend crush, not make him cry. But Izuku knew better than to outright apologize. Katsuki would think he was taunting him, exposing the holes in his confidence and ripping them open to watch him bleed. Katsuki was going to suffer in silence, thinking about that one comment, that title of a bully for months. Izuku played it off, shoving his shoulder into Katsuki's, spilling a bit more of their stolen bottle of liquor. "Whoops, I guess we're both bullies." Katsuki smirked, snatching the bottle and the red solo cup from the freckled boy. "You're a moron," he said. But his voice betrayed him. No matter the universe, Izuku always knew how to make Katsuki feel better. He and his jungle of green curls, his dozens of constellations of freckles, his soft emerald eyes that always had a glossy glaze over them, even when he was shining as bright as the sun. When he stopped to notice and think about it, just the sight of Izuku could make him feel better. So as they drank the stolen alcohol and filled their stomachs with a sloshing, burning sensation, Katsuki really thought about Izuku. He was feminine, but in a very masculine way. This version of Izuku had plenty of scars along his thin but lean body, some big and some small, scattered and adjacent to his freckles. They were more condensed, smaller, angrier around his inner forearms and wrists, but became longer and more natural up his biceps. His shorts gave Katsuki a good view of the scars on his thighs and knees. It was obvious to tell which one were from housing as a kid, which ones were the bruise from the other day. When this Izuku first arrived in Katsuki's reality, under his eye and around his nose was fading quickly. There was a soft blush painted across Izuku's face, and Katsuki had the weirdest urge to reach out and touch him to see if he was as warm as Katsuki was. Perhaps he was drinking too much. He had learned in school that alcohol can really mess up teenagers in the areas of the brain that control judgment, memory, and all that stuff. "You're staring," Izuku whispered, plopping his drink down on the counter. Izuku had filled Katsuki's own red solo cup to the brink and kept the bottle for himself. He poured in some honey to the drinks, making them easier to chug. And now his movements were sloppy and uncoordinated. His eyes were droopy, and his smile looked like it was hanging on by a loose thread, bright in such a devious way, clinging onto his pretty face. Katsuki's Adam's apple bobbed in his throat. "You're staring at me," Izuku continued, pushing back a hiccup. "And you're not being subtle. What's that about?" Katsuki wasn't in his right mind. While he didn't feel dizzy, he was swaying softly side to side. His arms felt heavier, like they might tear off his torso and drop to the kitchen floor, and his feet were unbelievably light. The blonde really truly believed that if he wanted to, he could sprint from here all the way to Izuku's reality and back without breaking a sweat. He was wrong, of course, considering the fact that he was already sweating. He kept rubbing his palms on his pants so he wouldn't blow up the place by accident. Even after Izuku told him twice that he was staring, it took Katsuki a while to realize his eyes burned when he blinked, and he forgot his drink was in his hand. As he went to wipe his eyes, Izuku pulled the empty cup away from him. "Must be your first time drinking," Izuku chuckled. "You should have told me. I would have stopped you after a couple sips." Katsuki grumbled something, cursing the way his body drifted to Izuku's. He found himself pressed against him, his head tucked into the other boy's freckled collarbone. Katsuki inhaled the scent of cotton flower and rose, masked by the honeyed whiskey, and subconsciously wrapped his arms around Izuku's torso. He'd regret this later on, but not now. Time was melting with him and his dignity. As Izuku stumbled up the stairs, pulling Katsuki along with him, they collapsed in Izuku's bed, threw the blankets on the floor because of the sudden heat, and turned on the TV to numb out their minds a little more. 𝐒𝐭 had gone out with some of her friends from college tonight. She wouldn't be back until the morning, since it was one of her friend's 40th birthday, which, because of the misery, deserved a night to remember Katsuki. And Izuku took full advantage of that, perhaps a bit too much. Katsuki's hand rested on Izuku's bare chest, his middle and index fingers pretending to be a pair of legs walking around the freckled domain. Izuku's fingers were curled in Katsuki's hair, stroking the oddly soft spikes. Of course Izuku knew what Katsuki's hair felt like. He had a version of his own that he cuddled with, though back in his reality, they usually wore more than just their boxers. And yet he was fascinated by the texture. Who would have thought Katsuki's daring ash blonde hair would be so soft to the touch? The corpse bride was on. Katsuki's vision was too blurry to see it. He could barely see his dancing hand or Izuku's olive bronze skin staring again, Izuku said. But his voice was caught in his throat right now. This boy looked like his Katsuki, with the creases between his eyebrows gone, and his dewy skin flushed pink from the gentle body heat radiating off of the both of them. His ruby red eyes were so soft, so curious and warm and fascinated. For the first time since he got here, Izuku got the feeling that he was home. But he wasn't, not really. That simple fact was hard to keep in mind, especially when Katsuki's lips found their way against Izuku's mouth with their mouths slotted together, and the sweet aftertaste of honey and whiskey on their tongues. Izuku tried so desperately to remind himself that this boy wasn't his. This wasn't the boy that protected him from bullies and taught him how to stand up for himself. This wasn't the boy that insisted on walking him home every single day after school with his arms slung over Izuku's shoulders. This wasn't the boy that talked him down from the top of the building and stood by his side through every step of his recovery. No, this was just a copy, a replacement, so close to the real thing, but ever so slightly off. This was the other Izuku's Katsuki, his Kaken. They had their own things to work out, and Izuku would be damned if he got in the way of his doppelganger's slow and steady progress. Izuku finally pulled away from the messy kiss, and had be lying if Katsuki's panicked expression didn't break his heart. Katsuki's eyes were begging him to tell him what he did wrong, to say it's okay, or play it off like another joke to save his pride. Because who is Bakugo Katsuki if not his pride? But Izuku didn't do any of that. He didn't want to placate him. Izuku wanted to make him feel better. He pressed a kiss to Katsuki's forehead, then held him in his arms as the alcohol swished in their tummies. Right person, Izuku whispered, but not do you understand? Katsuki used every fiber of energy in his body to fight back his sobs. Why was he crying? Of course he understood. He understood for years, ever since he was in elementary school, and his first crush was his stupid green-haired neighbor, instead of the blue-eyed girl that asked him to play with her at recess. He understood then that had forever live with that crush nestled deep in his heart, under all the passive-aggressive homophobic comments that his hero All Might said during interviews. And because All Might said it, well, it might as well have been written in the Bible. Katsuki couldn't be gay. All Might said gay men couldn't be heroes. His friends said gay men weren't strong. His teachers said gay men were a thing of the past and wouldn't be able to thrive in today's society. Worthless, pitiful boys like Deku were gay, not Bakugo Katsuki. It's okay, Izuku told him. You're okay. Katsuki didn't try to hold back his sobs anymore. He sputtered out curses and apologies, slandered All Might's name for making him and society bend over his knee with just a few vague comments. And he slandered his own name for hurting Izuku the way he had. It wasn't fair, not at all. Deep breaths. Okay. Izuku said, you can't make out with me, the asshole. Remember? Katsuki snickered a bit. At that, I know, drunk. Izuku nodded, wearing his taunting grin. Yes, you're drunk, we're drunk. Sorry, Katsuki said. Izuku shook his head. Save your apologies for your Izuku. He needs them a lot more than I do. The kisses too. Katsuki rolled his eyes, rolling over to grab his clothes from the floor. He threw Izuku's pants and shorts at him too. And they quickly got dressed, drank water, and turned up the TV before collapsing back onto the bed. Hey Izuku, Katsuki said around an hour later, his eyes heavy with sleep. Izuku hummed, much too tired to form a verbal sentence. When you go back to your reality, tell your Katsuki that he's not a bad person. Izuku's eyebrows furrowed. Why? Katsuki closed his eyes. If he's anything like me, then that's the only thing he's thinking about. Even when he's trying to do things right, he's wrong. Mean is my default. But that doesn't mean I don't ugh. I don't know. Fuck off, my head hurts. Izuku laughed at that. Then turn off the light and let's go to sleep. Katsuki scoffed. Hell no. I'm not getting up. Well, I guess we're sleeping with the lights on. Izuku cackled. Fine by me. Night. What? No, Izuku, damn it, turn off the fucking lights. You're closer. Izuku faked a snore. Katsuki smacked him before dragging himself to the light switch, then promptly belly-flopping onto the bed, crushing Izuku in the process. They went back and forth, play fighting and such before eventually they passed out from exhaustion. Katsuki had never slept better in his entire life. Izuku woke up with his arm around Katsuki and the faint sound of corny romance music coming from downstairs. He blinked himself awake, groggily rolled away from the blonde, and forced himself to sit up. Not too long after, Katsuki resurrected himself too, and immediately drifted to the bathroom, swaying with his eyelids still heavy from sleep. Izuku absent-mindedly followed him and watched with furrowed eyebrows as Katsuki, fully clothed, dropped into the empty bathtub. What are you doing? Izuku asked. Katsuki grunted. I dunno's comfy. Izuku nodded. Well, close your eyes. I have to pee. Katsuki turned over in the tub, practically falling asleep with his back facing Izuku. When Izuku finished, he washed his hands and face, then dragged Katsuki out of the bathroom and downstairs. The sound of lovey-dovey music got louder, and Izuku nearly had a stroke as he entered the kitchen. All Might Yagi Toshinori stood like a tall, skinny tree in the kitchen, wearing Izuku's mom's apron. It was way too big for him width-wise, and it barely reached past his waist, making the whole scene Even more disturbing, his brittle yellow hair was pulled into a stringy ponytail on the back of his neck, and loose in his grasp was a spatula. On the stove was a large pan with 2 massive pancakes, still cooking. Beside it, a stack of pancakes was already made. Toshinori blinked, shifting awkwardly on his feet that looked much too big for his twiggy body. "Aha, young Midoriya," Toshinori greeted. "Good morning." Izuku spun around to face Katsuki, who was still practically asleep. Izuku's Kaken, back in his reality, was a morning person, so this was another minor detail that the freckled boy couldn't get used to. "What is he doing here?" Izuku whispered to his blonde friend. Katsuki shrugged. "Why don't you ask him? I mean, he can hear you anyways." Izuku's mom scurried out of the bathroom, muttering apologies about leaving Toshinori all alone in the kitchen. Upon seeing Izuku and Katsuki, Inko greeted them both with a quick kiss on the forehead. "Good morning, my little doves." Inko giggled. "I told you about Toshinori, right? He and I have been talking for a while. Now he offered to cook breakfast for you too this morning. Isn't that lovely, Mom?" Izuku cried, absolutely mortified. "You're dating All Might?" Perplexed, Inko turned to look at Katsuki for answers. "Who is this All Might he's talking about? Should we call the doctor again?" Katsuki shook his head, gently guiding Izuku back upstairs. "I'll take care of it," Katsuki muttered. "Probably just a weird dream, Simon." Izuku couldn't stop mumbling as he was pulled up the stairs and back into the bedroom. "This can't be happening. I'm in hell. This is the underworld. Dear Jesus, what have I done to deserve this outrageous punishment? Forgive me, please. I can't take it." Izuku breathed. Katsuki said with a teasing laugh. "What the heck is going on? That can't be the All Might you were telling me about, right? I'm all for inclusion in hero society, but he's not exactly one material." Izuku shook his head. "All Might has 2 forms, a big muscly hero and a pale decaying twig. He got into a really bad fight with All for One and had trouble transforming into his bigger form. I don't even care that he's not a hero at this point. But why is he dating my mom?" Katsuki laughed again, this time covering his face with his hands. Izuku's dramatic reactions and the angry flush on his face was really priceless. "A while ago, Inko told us that she met this guy at some coffee shop. Apparently he works as a secretary at Yui High School. They kinda hit it off. But this is the first time he's ever showed up here, so bad timing on your end." "I guess this goes beyond bad timing," Izuku cried. "This is the heavens above punishing me. First Aoyama and the cheese, and now this." Katsuki furrowed his eyebrows. "I'm not gonna ask. Sounds personal and gross." "You don't want to know," Izuku muttered. "Anyway, we need to do something about this. We can't make your mom break up with her new boyfriend." Katsuki scoffed. "That's mean. She looks happy." Izuku snickered. "Never thought I'd hear you act so righteously." Katsuki rolled his eyes, smacking Izuku in the face with a Spider-Man pillow. "How old are you? 5? That's not my name." Izuku giggled, catching the pillow and throwing it back. "Your dear Izuku doesn't call you Kaken." Katsuki grimaced and shook his head. "Nah, he's always called me Cat. I guess Kaken is cute, but definitely not my thing." Izuku smirked at that. "It's funny you say that because I tried calling Kaken by his name for a day, and he almost killed me because of it. I either referred to him as Kaken or not at all. Wow. And he calls himself a badass PFFT." Katsuki plopped down horizontally on Izuku's bed, kicking his feet up on the bedside table, just to be annoying. "So you said you're from the future?" he asked. "What's Yui like?" Izuku shrugged. "I've only been there for a little under a month, so the real training hasn't really kickstarted yet. It's nice, really nice, just kinda stressful. They are planning on putting our class on the front lines of the war." "Excuse me, what? It's not as bad as it sounds," Izuku said quickly. "The Hero Commission predicted the war will be in like 7 or 8 months. By then we'll have our hero licenses." "What the hell? Y'all be still teenagers. They can't just throw you into a fucking war. I like kicking ass just as much as the next hero-bound crazy motherfucking. But it's the school's responsibility to keep the students out of harm's way, not throw them into it. We aren't training just to patrol all day and stop petty crimes," Izuku told him, as if the fact was evident. "I didn't get this power to sit like a trophy on some dusty shelf. I want to help people, and I have the power to do that. So does my Kaken. We have to be strong when other people can't." Katsuki shook his head. "I know you can hold your own, Izuku. I know you're strong, but not everyone else is as fucked up with determination as we are." "What happens when one of your classmates makes a mistake and doesn't come back home? Who would be at fault?" Izuku tried to ignore the goosebumps creeping over his tan, scarred skin. He kept trying to swallow the lump in his throat, but his mouth was dry and his tongue felt like sandpaper. Katsuki was right. There was a chance not everyone would make it out alive, whether it would be Uraraka, Ida, Todoroki, Kaminari, Kirishima, or even Kaken. Izuku cursed his vivid imagination for offering up images of Kaken's limp body bleeding out on the battlefield. If that happened, what could Izuku even do? If Kaken was gone, dead, how could Izuku move on? Had spent his whole life with the irritated blonde. The good moments, the bad moments, the best times of their lives were spent together, and also the times where they fought tooth and nail to escape from their own mental prisons. Katsuki hadn't always helped him out. When he was in the dark, Izuku wasn't much help. When Katsuki broke down into shambles, but they were there present, understood each other in a way nobody else could, and Izuku couldn't lose that. But he couldn't avoid the war, either after inheriting one. For all he really didn't have a choice. Katsuki had to understand that. Let's talk about something else, Katsuki said, pulling his feet off the side table. He could practically feel Izuku's anxiety radiating off of him, forcing him to turn the subject train onto a brighter, clearer railroad. Did you make any new friends there besides that Todoroki bastard? Izuku smirked. He's not a bastard, he's pretty cool actually. Katsuki playfully rolled his eyes. Whatever. Who else is interesting? Anyone I would get along with? Well, you do have your own backup squad. If that counts. They are self-proclaimed, of course, since Kaken would rather die than come up with something so corny. Katsuki laughed at that. Yeah, that's pretty fucking bad. But man, they've got to be cool, right? I mean, having my own squad, I've got to be pretty cool too. Izuku nodded triumphantly. You are most definitely cool, Kaken. I told you, Izuku. My name is Cat, the blonde corrected, furrowing his eyebrows. Izuku smiled. I'll call you Cat when you call me Deku. Katsuki scowled. That's different. And you know it. Deku is an insult. It used to be, Izuku told him. But it's not anymore. It's gonna be my hero name. Actually, Katsuki stared at him, witty-eyed, waiting for the freckled boy to elaborate. My friend Uraraka heard Kaken calling me Deku during the entrance exam. And she said it sounded like a cheer, like you got this, or something. I don't know what exactly it was. But she just looked so bright and happy and optimistic. It spread to me and spread all over the name Deku, changing it into something else completely. Deku is my name. And it's a reminder that I'm not weak anymore, that I'm strong. And I can overcome this, whatever it may be. And it's a reminder that Kaken isn't my enemy anymore. He's my motivation and my friend. Even after all that. Katsuki frowned. This girl Uraraka, do you like her? Izuku's jaw literally dropped halfway to hell. I literally just gave a whole amazing speech, mind you, without stuttering. And all you care about is if I have a crush on my best friend. I thought I was your best friend. We went over this. Me and my Kaken don't get along too well. He certainly wouldn't be poking his nose in my business, trying to figure out if I have a crush on Uraraka. Well, do you know, I don't. Then you like Ida? Izuku groaned. Why do I have to have a crush on anyone? Why can't I just live my life? I knew it. It's Todoroki. It's not Todoroki. I like Kaken. I've always liked Kaken. And that's not gonna change. Katsuki smirked, flicking Izuku's face right between the eyebrows. His freckled face was consumed by an embarrassed blush. As he realized what he just said, screamed out loud. He pushed away from Katsuki, tucked himself into a ball, and hid his face from the world. You're horrible. Izuku pouted, his voice muffled. Ah, don't be like that, Deku. I was just messing with you. Izuku grunted disapprovingly. Katsuki snickered, fighting the urge to burst out laughing at the sight of Izuku's passive temper tantrum. Well, I guess we should figure out how to get you back home then, right? So you can tell Kaken all about your little crush. Cat, quit it. It's not funny. PFFT. What do you mean? It's fucking hilarious, Katsuki teased. And anyway, it probably made you stop thinking about your mom and ass, might, right? Izuku buried his face in his pillow and screamed like he was getting brutally murdered. Really, the feeling wasn't too far off. I have an idea, Izuku said, breaking the silence that wafted between them. It wasn't an awkward silence, just stressful. They had been lounging in Izuku's bedroom, brainstorming ways to get him back home, and so far they didn't even manage to scrape up a fiber of a clue. Katsuki had suggested beating Izuku to a pulp, thinking that maybe being on the brink of death would send him back to his reality. It ended with Izuku busting Katsuki's lip with a dirty sucker punch, so they sat in silence as Katsuki pouted and Izuku thought. Then he had an idea which caught Katsuki's attention. Well, what is it, Deku? Izuku rolled his eyes. What was that? You want me to punch you in the fucking face again? Katsuki tried to hide his shiver. Calm down, loser. He spat, hiding the way his voice box trembled. It's a force of habit. You know, I didn't mean anything by it. I don't care, Izuku scoffed. That's not my name, Cat, you know it. And I don't want you to call me that. Katsuki crossed his arms over his chest, thinking that maybe the defensive stance would actually help him rebuild his fractured confidence. Well, that isn't my name either, he said. Izuku blinked, staring blankly. Huh? What you called me, that's not my fucking name. Izuku tilted his head. You mean Cat? Technically, it is your name. It's just shortened. I don't want you to call me that. Katsuki huffed. It doesn't sound right. PFFT. Okay, Bakugo. Izuku mocked. Better. No, Katsuki growled. Call me what my Deku calls me. What the hell? No, that's stupid. I'm not seriously calling you that. It's corny as fuck. No, it's not. Katsuki screamed. And anyway, you're him. You guys like share a brain or something? I don't know, dude. Are you listening to yourself? Izuku mocked. This is fucking ridiculous. We have more important things to get to right now. They fell back into an ocean of silence. It was awkward the second time around. Izuku tried to force the gears in his mind to turn. But he couldn't stop thinking about Katsuki. Cat. Actually, he was here, which meant this Katsuki's Deku was with his cat. Were they getting along? Did Cat like Deku more than he liked Izuku? Izuku pinched the bridge of his nose. This was getting ridiculous. He and Deku were literally as close to the same person as physically possible. They had the exact same DNA, same fingerprint, same glossy green eyes, and same splotchy freckles. The only difference was their environments. Izuku was starting to realize that was a big difference. He wondered if Cat realized it too. Wherever he was doing whatever he was doing, Izuku didn't want to think about it. "You're an ass," Katsuki said out of nowhere. He didn't lift his gaze from the floor, didn't bother letting Izuku know who he was talking to. For all Izuku knew, Katsuki could have driven himself insane, and started talking to his imaginary friends. Izuku fought back the urge to punch him, or tease him for that matter, getting so upset over a childhood nickname over Kaken. How childish. Of course Cat wasn't all that mature, but it was a better solution for Izuku's speech impediment than Kaken. But Izuku didn't tease. He noticed how Katsuki changed from calling his freckled boy Deku to his actual name. He was opening up begrudgingly and painfully slow. But the effort was there. Izuku couldn't punish him with mockery after such a massive step forward. "It's sweet," Izuku finally said. "But you know it'd only hurt more if I called you that." Not him, not really," Katsuki sniffled, painting the scowl back onto his face. "I know that, asshole. I don't want to sit through this sappy conversation again." "I'm serious," Izuku continued. "I care about you, Katsuki. But I don't love you the way he does. And you don't love me the way you love him." Katsuki waited a few beats to ask his question. Maybe so he could mentally prepare for the answer. Do you love your Katsuki?" Izuku nodded slowly, pensively. Yeah, I do. He loves you too." Izuku let that soak in for a while. Then he decided to make a snarky comment. "You are such a homosexual. Shut the fuck up, you quirkless piece of tusk. That's not how we behave in this household, young man," Izuku teased. "Now saw you're sorry. Who the fuck do you think you are?" Izuku punched right in the jaw. Not hard enough to leave a bruise, but hard enough to shut him up. "Done," Izuku snapped. Katsuki's response was an annoyed grunt. "Good," Izuku grumbled, "cause I'm getting sick of your quirkest shit. It's fucking ridiculous." Katsuki decided to change the subject altogether. He said, "Are you going to tell me that dumb idea of yours, or what?" Izuku chuckled at that. "You're such a prick," he said. But it was laced with enough humor for Katsuki to catch on and untense himself. "Well, if this has anything to do with a weird quirk, then Mr. Aizawa can just use his quirk to cancel it." Katsuki furrowed his eyebrows. "Who Aizawa? Shout a pro hero Eraserhead," Izuku answered. "He's our homeroom teacher at UUE. So far I think I'm his least favorite student. But he's still a really cool guy. He was part of the big three of UUE back when he was in school. And now he's teaching the next gen. His quirk is Erasure, so he can cancel any quirk just by looking at someone." Katsuki nodded. He only heard snips of the underground stealth hero Eraserhead. But from what he could gather, the man was a force to be reckoned with. This sparked curiosity in Katsuki, and he found himself asking more about life at UUE. He wanted to know his competition, but also his friends, if he managed to make any, and his teachers who were going to take his skills and sharpen them to perfection. Izuku smiled, rambling on about all their new friends in class, and how the training was difficult in such a fun way. He had stars in his eyes when he talked about not being the only quirkless kid in class. Aoyama was the other, if Katsuki heard correctly, though Izuku said he was kinda weird, and how he stood his ground during sparring matches against people like Todoroki Ojiro and Tokoyami. "My most challenging opponent is definitely Kirishima, since I'm a close combat fighter. And he has a hardening quirk," my friend Hatsum said. "Shed work on some support items for my hands to increase my durability." As he rambled, Katsuki sank into his words. He was so excited for this life ahead of him, for people on his level that he couldn't and wouldn't push around. He wanted equals, wanted to stop being put on a pedestal, and have actual friends. Izuku moved on to the teachers, and what the students called the Big Three staff, which consisted of Present Mike, Loud Cloud, and Eraserhead. Though he didn't like his hero name and demanded the students just call him Mr. Aizawa, Izuku told the story of how the three of them were best friends and survived a terrible accident back in their days at UUE. Loud Cloud was injured the worst, and now he has a glass eye and a prosthetic leg. But he's still one of the best heroes of all time. Plus, he's funny if he wasn't a teacher, and took on a full-time hero job. He'd definitely be in the top 5. Same with Present Mike and Mr. Aizawa. Katsuki grinned. "So you think they'll be able to help us?" Izuku nodded with pride. "Definitely. We just need to figure out how to get in touch with them and explain everything. You're not enrolled yet, so we can't use student IDs. You could ask All Might," Katsuki suggested. "You are technically in the middle of quirk training with him, if your mom and the doctor were serious about that stuff." "But I don't have a quirk," Izuku said, "which is a pretty big deal around here. So why would the number 1 hero be training with me?" Katsuki rolled his eyes and scoffed. "Hell if I know. I just heard your mom talking about it. She was on the phone with All Might after we got back from the hospital. She told All Might that the doctor said your newly sprouted quirk was gone, which is a pretty big fucking deal." Izuku frowned. "I don't really like the sound of this guy, though," he said, especially after reading Deku's journal entries. "Hey, how come you can call him Deku?" "That's not fucking fair. It's so readers don't get confused," Izuku muttered. "Not that there's that many of them anyway. While you're being fucking weird again, stop it. You're such a crybaby. Chill out. How does Deku even put up with you? The fucking crybaby. Seriously." Izuku snorted a laugh. "Yeah, do you hear yourself? It's fucking ridiculous how much you whine and cry." Katsuki lunged at him, but only earned himself another punch in the face. "If you're done, we need to talk to this ass Mike guy. I don't want to waste any more time here bickering with you." "Don't worry," Katsuki scoffed, holding his throbbing lip and forcing himself to stand strong. "Izuku, Had a really mean punch, the feeling is fucking mutual. You shithead. Izuku smiled at that big and bright like he knew this was Katsuki's last attempt to salvage a win. Little did he know he had already lost. Good thing Izuku wasn't a sore winner. My apologies, young men. But may you please repeat yourself? I'm having trouble understanding, Toshinori said, his brittle hands grasping his bony knees. As he leaned forward on the couch, Izuku shifted awkwardly before him, glancing at Katsuki for help. Katsuki nodded. Deku got hit by a weird quirk. We think, Izuku muttered. Katsuki ignored him. And we're hoping that you can take us to Yui, so we can talk to Mr. Aizawa, and have him use his quirk to send Deku home. Toshinori furrowed his eyebrows. I understood that much, he said. I'm just wondering where exactly young Midoriya is coming from. It doesn't make sense to me. Katsuki and Izuku exchanged strange glances. Well, Izuku stammered. We're thinking it's like an alternate reality or dimension, or something. Toshinori gave them a skeptical look. Izuku didn't sound too confident in himself. So Katsuki took the lead. In Deku's reality, things are a lot different than they are here, like for example our friendship, or lack thereof technically, and the hero rankings and national history and stuff, even stuff like my mom. She's still alive. Where Deku is from, it's too specific for him to make it all up. Also, if you hadn't noticed, his personality is a lot different. Toshinori nodded. Yes, I was wondering why he was acting so timid. Izuku let out a nervous squeak. Usually All Might only ever referred to him as courageous and brave, the future #1 hero. Timid. Well, it wasn't exactly a compliment, and it did nothing for Izuku's faltering self-esteem. He's nervous. Katsuki jumped in, and rightfully so. He got mysteriously transported to another reality, a few months back in time. All we know is that we need to get him home as soon as possible. Izuku still felt a bit off about returning to his reality. Katsuki was mean there, even if he wasn't as bad as he was in middle school. It still wasn't something Izuku wanted to deal with, especially after spending time with the blonde's angelic doppelganger. And there were other things too, like Endeavor. Izuku had gathered a few clues about how the Todoroki household operated, but it wasn't ever in the forefront of his mind. Now, after hearing that Endeavor was serving a life sentence, well, it made Izuku nervous, scared. Even how could a man like that be one of the top heroes? Izuku didn't want to go home. Not really. Surely the other version of himself was handling things over there, right? Based on the clues Izuku was able to scrape up from Kat, his Izuku was strong and fierce and unstoppable. He could definitely handle Kaken better. But on the other hand, Kat had filled Izuku with a new sense of urgency to patch things up with his Kaken, and more importantly communicate how he felt about the way he was treated. Izuku was determined to set things straight. He knew he could. And when Katsuki understood and apologized, Izuku would confess his feelings. It was a little wonky, Izuku had to admit. But it was going to work out, so he pushed the little bit of doubt and fear from his mind. What was it Kat told him to think? Just keep telling yourself, Midoriya fucking Izuku, I got this. He's right, Izuku said. I need to get home now. Toshinori sighed, cradling his head in his hands. I can speak to Eraserhead, but I can't guarantee anything. After all, I'm just a secretary over there. Just try your best. That's all we ask, Katsuki said. If not, it's fine, Deku. And I can always figure something out, right, man? He nudged Izuku's shoulder, smiling deviously at him. Izuku smiled back, nodding triumphantly. Hell, yeah, Jesus fucking Christ, Izuku muttered, grabbing the back of Katsuki's shirt. As they walked down the street, he claimed that some extra across the street was giving him a dirty look, and of course his solution was to attempt murder. Thankfully, Izuku caught him in time and tossed him to the side. Katsuki stumbled to get his balance, while Izuku just kept walking, since the blonde would rather die than appear. As though he was following Izuku, he straightened up and kept a fast enough pace to just slightly be in front of the freckled boy. Izuku decided to just let him have this one. The two boys were on their way to the address. All Might gave them over the phone, planning to explain everything as best as they could, as well as ask for permission to go onto Yui property to talk to Mr. Aizawa. Izuku was praying to a nameless god that he didn't even believe that this All Might guy was as heroic as Katsuki seemed to think. He had his doubts, of course. What kind of middle-aged man feeds his hair to a 15-year-old on a deserted beach alone after sunset, where nobody could hear them scream? Yeah, Izuku definitely was doubting the morals of this dude. When they arrived at the address, All Might was snapping pictures with a couple of fans, all jabbering about how fantastic he was. Katsuki tried to hide how his fanboy eyes lit up with admiration, but Izuku noticed, and it made him a little sick. What could this man possibly have done to make everyone even stubborn ass Bakugo Katsuki kiss his ass? It was fucking ridiculous. All Might noticed the two boys approaching, and much to the small crowd's dismay excused himself. His booming voice was much more polite and welcoming than Izuku had expected it to be, and his hero suit looked more like a second skin sticking to his poster-quality muscles. Izuku snorted with disgust, thinking about the marketing team that probably had horny middle-aged moms in mind while designing the hero's costume. Thank God his mom wasn't a huge All Might fan. That probably would have been the end of the line. Young Midoriya, All Might greeted. It's nice to see you, young man. How have you been holding up? Still training? I'm sorry I had to pause our regular training schedule. Hero work is unpredictable nowadays. No offense, Izuku snapped. But I don't care, and I didn't ask. Let's just get to the point. Yeah, confusion suffused itself over All Might's sharp features, and a bit of hurt too. Katsuki nudged Izuku in the ribs with his elbow, scowling at him with the power of 1,000 suns. Don't be a dick, he scoffed. Izuku rolled his eyes, forcing the tension in his shoulders to disperse. He uncrossed his arms from his chest and tucked them in his pockets, doing his best to not piss off his ticket home. Fine, sorry. I guess I just don't enjoy your existence. But young Midoriya, you're my #1 fan, aren't you? All Might asked, eyebrows furrowed. I don't understand what happened. Right, well, if you can hold back your tears and stop whining for a couple minutes, old man, I'll fill you in. All Might's expression hardened, and he nodded swiftly, leading the two boys around the apartment building and up a few flights of stairs. Izuku and Katsuki were both equally confused, especially when they emerged into the apartment and saw an even older man curled up on a plastic-covered couch with a yellow cape draped over him like a blanket. Izuku recognized him immediately, and his blood ran cold. What the fuck? All Might's eyes widened with horror, snapping his neck to see if young Midoriya really just cursed in his presence. Or at all, really. Katsuki didn't seem as shocked, just offered All Might a shrug and tried to keep his excited, bubbling nerves down in the pit of his stomach. What is it? All Might asked when Izuku didn't continue. Izuku rubbed his eyes and blinked a few times, trying to make sure his eyes weren't deceiving him. When the old man didn't disappear from his sight, vanish into thin air or something, he turned to All Might. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. How the hell is he alive? Izuku asked. All Might's face fell with disappointment. Midoriya, it's disrespectful to make comments like that to an elderly person. Izuku waved him away, scoffing under his breath. No, it's not about his age. Last time I checked, the pro hero Gran Torino was dead. He's been dead for like 3 decades. I learned about him in history class. All Might and Katsuki exchanged strange looks. Gran Torino continued his peaceful slumber, unbothered by the little bit of commotion. Confused, All Might said once again. Katsuki nodded bitterly. Yeah, I'll get used to it. Where even are we? Izuku asked. I know you've got enough money to own at least 6 shiny gold mansions. What are we doing in this musty and cramped apartment? All Might scowled, offended. This apartment is a backup location where we can't be eavesdropped on. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He really didn't like the vibes this hero gave off. But there wasn't much he could do about it. He didn't have a concrete reason to hate him other than the fact that he was a total weirdo. But you're going to take us to Yui to see Mr. Aizawa, right? Izuku asked warily. All Might nodded yes. But I'd like some detailed answers first, if you wouldn't mind. They settled down in chairs around the table, and Katsuki had to physically and mentally restrain himself from breaking the wobbly table in half. Gran Torino moped over, yawning and dragging his cape blanket behind him like a little kid. Izuku tried not to stare at him the whole time. Everything about this was just weird. Eventually Izuku started explaining things. 1 second, it was springtime, and he was a Yui student with his best friend Katsuki, and the next it was back to fall, and he was a middle schooler getting bullied by everyone in the classroom, teacher included. He explained a few differences between his reality and this new weird one, like Katsuki's anger issues, Katsuki's mom being alive, All Might being a thing, Izuku supposedly having a quirk, Endeavor not being in jail, Mirko not being the top hero, and now Gran Torino being alive. Not to mention he was back in time almost 7 months when he was finished, Katsuki added. And if you couldn't tell, he's a total asshat. All Might nodded. Yes, I've noticed. Izuku clenched his jaw. Don't act like you're any better, you fucking fake ass manipulative hero. You're a real piece of shit. That's enough, Gran Torino mumbled. We have better things to do. Criticizing the symbol of peace will only drive us into chaos. Izuku laughed, bitter and dry and sarcastic. Symbol of peace, he mocked. You've got to be fucking kidding me. This bozo is your symbol of peace. Shut the hell up, Izuku. Katsuki snapped. You're not helping, Izuku huffed, not even bothering to try and hide his annoyance. Whatever, he muttered. Fine, I apologize. Thank you, All Might said a bit too smugly. So your plan is to have Aizawa use erasure to send you home? Gran Torino asked. How can we be sure a quirk sent you here? We can't, Izuku answered plainly. But what other explanation is there? All Might glanced at Katsuki, then back at Izuku, his eyes worried and wide. Does he know? It took a second for Izuku's brain to catch up, and when it did, he scoffed and rolled his eyes. About you forcing Deku to eat your greasy ass hair, Izuku blurted. Yet neither of us really knows the details, though Deku wasn't clear in his notes, probably to keep the secret. Though he did talk a lot about his arms and legs snapping like twigs. So there's that. All Might nodded, a sour look on his face. Good, Izuku thought. He should feel bad for making a kid go through that, regardless of how much of a fanboy he was. Well, if I share, you must also promise to keep the secret, All Might said. Yeah, of course, Katsuki said a little too quickly. Izuku smirked at him. Okay, Izuku agreed. As long as it's not anything weird or illegal. All Might frowned. Am a hero, young Midoriya? Izuku scoffed again. Yeah, and it's a pretty loose definition. All Might shook his head, disappointed. I can't believe you think so lowly of me. I can't believe you made Deku eat your hair and stood by not doing anything when Katsuki was attacked by the sludge villain. Everyone in the room froze. Katsuki was the first to speak, sputtering a bit, then glaring at Izuku. The fuck are you talking about? Timeline of events says the sludge villain already happened, right? Izuku said. Because Deku wrote about it in his notebook. That's how Ass Might All Might noticed him in the first place. Katsuki was pissed because a little quirkless kid saved him. When he didn't know was that All Might was in the crowd. He wasn't going to do anything until Deku jumped in. You were going to let Katsuki die, weren't you? All Might didn't say anything. Katsuki didn't either. Izuku snorted, unimpressed. Like I said, hero is a loose definition. What, didn't see enough cameras around to document your hero work? Or did you think the angry blonde kid being publicly murdered by a villain that you let escape wasn't worth saving? You don't understand, All Might whispered. There's more to the story than when young Midoriya writes down. He wrote down enough for me to know you're an absolute fuckwad, Izuku blurted. And definitely not deserving of the #1 hero spot, or the shitty-ass symbol of peace title. You're a fraud. Katsuki shook his head, still in denial. That can't be true. You're just making shit up. All Might wouldn't. Not. It's true, Gran Torino added, lazily picking something out of his teeth as he kicked his little legs up on the wobbly table. He is kind of a prick, right, Toshinori? Wah, All Might gasped. Gran Torino cut him off. Don't worry about it. He's the symbol of peace because he's got big muscles, a good quirk, and a bright smile. He looks good on a poster. The people see him and think, ah, hell yeah, we're safe with him around. And maybe it's not always 100 true. But it's a comforting thought, right? Nobody wants to live without hope, even if the hope is faulty. Izuku couldn't argue with that. Actually, no matter what Gran Torino said, he wouldn't have the balls to argue. He literally learned in class just a few weeks ago about how Gran Torino sacrificed himself to stop All for One. Almost 30 years ago he went down, but with the help of Nana Shimura, so did All for One, and things had been peaceful ever since. If Gran Torino was still alive, did that mean All for One was too well had be an old-ass man by now? Would he be much of a threat? Or was he already arrested? Izuku didn't want to think about it. Excuse me, Mr. Eraserhead, Toshinori stammered, peeking his sunken face into Aizawa's empty classroom. The teacher was at his desk, half asleep and half dead, grading some paperwork with a purple cat pen. Do you have a minute? Of course I have a minute, Aizawa answered a bit too bluntly, but I'm not going to let you waste it. What do you want? Toshinori Adams' apple bobbed in his bony throat. I have 2 students here. They have a unique situation, and they're hoping you could be of assistance. Aizawa sighed and arranged his papers around, sticking them back into their respective folders. All right, send them in. I'll see what I can do. Izuku and Katsuki shuffled inside the classroom. Good evening, sir, Izuku squeaked. Aizawa glanced at Toshinori, unimpressed. These aren't Yui students, are they? Toshinori shook his head. No, sir, Aizawa sighed, not even bothering to hide his exhaustion. What do you need, kids? Nothing too complicated, sir, Izuku blurted. I think I might have been no. I know I was transferred to a different dimension or reality or timeline or something. Not sure I was. We were wondering if Katsuki gently nudged Izuku's shoulder, giving him an encouraging smile. Breathe, dude, he whispered. Stand your ground. You're all right, Izuku nodded, closing his eyes and taking a few moments to inhale, hold it, and exhale. He wiped his clammy palms on his pants, then straightened his spine. What reason did he have to be so nervous? Sure, Mr. Aizawa was probably the most intimidating person Izuku had ever met. But he wouldn't ever harm him in his own time and reality. Izuku was his student, his favorite problem child. Izuku had learned that despite his contrary appearance, Mr. Aizawa was a very kind person. Mr. Aizawa, Izuku said, his voice smoother and more confident. My name is Midoriya Izuku Akadeku, and I believe I got hit with a quirk that sends me to another dimension. Aizawa raised a skeptical eyebrow. Is that so? Izuku nodded. He said his piece stern and with confidence, so it was only fair he got to shut up and charge his batteries. Thankfully, Katsuki noticed and took the reins. Yes, something definitely happened. Izuku's best friend. And as soon as this little swap happened, there was a pretty obvious difference. We went to the doctor to see if it was his meds acting up, but they said he had no traces of the medication in his system. And I know that isn't true because I remind him to take them every morning. Izuku stole a glance at Katsuki, eyes wide with shock. He hadn't mentioned that last part during their conversations. Aizawa sighed again. Izuku caught a whiff of booze as the teacher shuffled to his feet. Was he allowed to drink on the job? That seemed incredibly unprofessional. But if he could still function properly, Izuku couldn't really argue now that he thought about it. Aizawa usually was drinking out of a strange water bottle when he was stressed out. The more you know, the more you know. Izuku shook his head, trying to stay focused. Mr. Aizawa's drinking habits were the least of his worries right now. He needed to focus on getting home. Dimension travel isn't my strong suit, Aizawa admitted, adjusting his binding cloth to a more comfortable position. Izuku grimaced, seeing the crusty flakes fall off of it. It was only natural that the binding cloth would get dirty after capturing so many villains. But didn't he wash it like ever? Izuku was starting to regret coming to his future homeroom teacher for help. Some things were better left unknown. I'll need more details than that, Aizawa said. This isn't just some game. Be as specific as possible. Izuku nodded, determined. He told the pro hero all the information they had gathered so far, like the difference in hero rankings, Katsuki and Izuku's personalities, and his gifted quirk. He spoke of the band of terrorists called the League of Villains that had been planning an attack on the school, and Katsuki's mother, who was alive in Izuku's reality, but deceased in this one. And of course the nationwide view on quirkless people, the mass dissemination and quirkist rallies. As a quirkless person myself, Toshinori chimed in, I could never live in a society where that much discrimination exists. You surely are brave, young Midoriya. Izuku gave a half-hearted smile. I do my best, he said. Aizawa shook his head, eyebrows furrowed. Something isn't adding up. You said this quirk one for all, it has been passed down from generation to generation. Izuku nodded. It was given to me by All Might, who is our #1 hero, and given to him by Nana Shimura before she lost her life to All for One. I think I've heard of her, Katsuki added. She was the one who fought that Shigaraki guy right decades ago. Aizawa nodded. She had unbelievable power similar to what you're explaining. She and Gran Torino fought against All for One after he tore up a city looking for her. Except in our reality, Gran Torino lost his life. But his sacrifice wasn't for nothing. They were able to defeat All for One, and the two of them went down in history. Chances are All for One was looking for One for All. Izuku said his goal has always been to take it back and destroy it. And if he was defeated that long ago, then there would be no need for her to pass on her quirk. Which means this reality is never going to have a war against the League of Villains. Exactly. So that being said, Aizawa continued, this seems much bigger than just you. If the entire world around you down to decades-old history has been altered, then the chances of you being hit by some random quirk are slim. Katsuki frowned. Can't you just try using your quirk on him, just in case? If he was hit by a quirk, Aizawa said after a moment of pondering, then using my quirk on him wouldn't do anything to help. I'd have to get to the root of the problem and locate the person whose quirk is responsible for the switch. Izuku and Katsuki exchanged frustrated glances. But how are we going to be able to find them? Izuku asked. Not only was I set back in time a few months, but the person whose quirk it is exists back in my own reality. Unless you weren't the one that got hit by the quirk, Katsuki said. Maybe my Izuku was hit, and the culprit is somewhere around here. I sincerely doubt some D-list villain is the cause of your jump between realities. Aizawa deadpanned. We'd have better luck trying to find a shark in a fishbowl. It wouldn't hurt to look around, Toshinori said. How about we give it a day or two and try to restore young Midoriya's memory? If he can remember more details of the exact moment he switched realities, he'll understand the cause, and perhaps the face of the villain who sent him here. This a waste of time, Aizawa huffed, dropping back in his chair. Come back when you're done playing tag with a villain that doesn't fucking exist. Will do, sir, Toshinori squeaked. Thank you for your time, Katsuki snickered. What do you need backbone lessons to? Toshinori flushed with embarrassment as they exited the classroom. No. He's just intimidating. He is, Izuku agreed. Good thing he's a hero. We'd all be doomed if Mr. Aizawa switched sides. Anyway, what's our plan? Are we really going to search for this villain to jog my memory? Toshinori nodded. I think that's our best bet right now. Fine by me, Katsuki said. I didn't want to go to school anyways. What's the point when we're just waiting for our high school acceptance letters? And Zuko already told me we both get into UUE, so middle school is just a waste of time. Now school is never a waste of time, young Bakugo, Toshinori said. You should always give your all whether you're being graded or not. I'll have to side with Kat on this one. Izuku chuckled. Middle school is absolutely shit. Katsuki smirked, high-fiving the freckled boy for his colorful language. While Toshinori sighed, Katsuki was the worst good role model this world had to offer. All Might, for the love of God. It's almost 10 at night, Aizawa groaned, sluggishly shoving his students' essays back into their folders. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, All Might answered. You should be at home. Aizawa scowled at the hero. Don't tell me what to do. What do you want? And why are these people here? I have 2 young men with me who need your assistance, All Might said. And Gran Torino just wanted to get out of the house. You're willing to help, right? Gran Torino was picking at his teeth with his nails, and upon hearing his name, he glanced at the people around him to see what was going on. All Might nudged him to wave at Eraserhead, who was unimpressed. Aizawa sighed, begrudgingly getting to his feet. You need to make friends with people who aren't underage boys, Aizawa scoffed. It really gives off the wrong message. That's disgusting, Katsuki grumbled. Yeah, Izuku added, and I'm definitely not friends with this old-ass bozo. I can't stand him actually. Aizawa's eyebrows raised with curiosity. I'm glad someone finally agrees with me. He's so annoying, isn't he? Izuku rolled his eyes. Fucking unbearable. All Might furrowed his golden eyebrows. I'm right here, guys, Aizawa scoffed. What you think, I'm blind or something? I know you're right. They were not hiding anything from you, Izuku blurted. We don't like you, you're an ass clown. There, you feel included now, All Might pouted, turning to Gran Torino for consolation and reassurance. They know I'm the #1 hero and symbol of peace. Right, I saved millions of lives. I brought this country out of ruins and into the golden age. You don't like him and an ass clown, right? Gran Torino just shrugged. You can be a bit of an ass clown sometimes, Toshinori. Katsuki scowled, kicking Izuku's shin. Stop being a fucking hater, you dumb ass nerd. You're making All Might insecure. Well, looks like you and your idol have something in common. Izuku smirked. Not insecure, fuck you. Yeah, All Might chimed in. We're not insecure, Aizawa snickered to himself. And anyways, MC not just being a hater this time, Izuku clarified. Hating because Ass Might over here has the biggest platform in the country, possibly even the world, and decides to be a horrible role model. He influences kids like Katsuki over here to grow up with the worst case of toxic masculinity I've ever seen. Now look at him. Katsuki is a fucking dickwad. I'm not a dickwad. Shut up. Yes you are. And I'm not a fond of the discrimination you've enabled within the hero society. Either Aizawa grumbled, shooting daggers at All Might with his red eyes. Your offhand comments about LGBTQ people, women, disabled, and quirkless people in the workforce has done much more harm than good. All Might furrowed his eyebrows. I meant no harm. I just want those who are weaker to be safe. And if you don't mind me asking, aren't quirkless people part of the disabled community? I want to kill you, Izuku blurted. But for legal reasons I'm going to let my teacher handle. It's smart choice, kid, Aizawa said. He cracked his knuckles and clocked All Might in the jaw. His muscled body jerked backwards, and a little bit of blood spewed from his lizard-thin lips. Gran Torino failed to hold back his laughter, while Katsuki's jaw dropped halfway to hell with a silent gasp. Desperate to hide his embarrassment, All Might shifted awkwardly on his heavy feet and wiped his lips with the back of his hand. He was sweating nervously under the yellow fluorescent light, shocked that this high school teacher's head caught him so off guard. Are you gonna just let him bitch you like that? Katsuki screamed. You're fucking All Might, you could kill him. All Might glanced at Eraserhead. The teacher smirked. Yeah, Toshinori, you could kill me here. I'll let you take the first shot. $20 Eraserhead is gonna fold this big-headed bozo. Izuku snickered. Katsuki furrowed his eyebrows. No fucking way. He will make it $40 stealth over strength, kids. Gran Torino chimed in. I'm putting $100 on the teacher. Perhaps we should get back to business. We didn't come here to talk about me, did we? All Might said, trying his best to ignore the bets being stacked against him. There are more important things we need to deal with, Izuku groaned, plopping on top of one of the empty desks. Lame. But yeah, I've been here too long. Time to go home. Aizawa nodded in agreement, though he was pretty upset that he couldn't let off some steam. Fine, what's the situation? I'm so glad you asked, Izuku answered cheerily. Long story short, another version of me got hit with a quirk that made me swap realities with him, and time got pushed back a few months, which is a weird side effect. But whatever, shit is wonky as hell here, and I'm getting homesick. I was hoping you could use your amazing quirk to send me back to my own reality, since you are my favorite pro hero. And all you liar, Aizawa chuckled. There's no way I'm your favorite pro. I'm stuck at this fucking high school. Izuku grinned. Aw, you caught me. Mirko's my favorite. But seriously, we could really use your help. Batted his eyelashes with fake innocence, making Aizawa snort a laugh. Please. Aizawa rolled his eyes, shoving Izuku's puppy dog eyes away from him. You're a real piece of work, kiddo. Simon, it won't take long, Izuku pleaded, pretty please, with sprinkles on top. Even if I did use my quirk on you, it wouldn't do anything to help. I'd have to get to the root of the problem and locate the person whose quirk is responsible for the switch, Aizawa explained. So the four of you coming here was a complete waste of my time. I told you, Gran Torino grumbled. Thanks anyway, Eraserhead. Yeah, thanks anyway, Izuku chimed in. He nudged Aizawa's side with his elbow, wiggling his eyebrows. Hey, what do you say we go get drinks sometime? You me present, Mike Loud Cloud. Maybe you could set me up with Mirko. Aizawa paled. What did you just say? Izuku jumped back, afraid of being caught in Aizawa's line of fire. I was just kidding, teach him a minor. I just got a massive crush on Mirko. But honestly, who doesn't know? No, not that, Aizawa said. You said Loud Cloud as in 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows, confused. Yeah, I think so, the guy with the fluffy blue hair and cloud quirk. He's my world cultures teacher, kind of a goof. But he's pretty cool. All Might placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. A sad smile plastered on his picture-perfect face, like he had practiced his sympathetic face 1,000,000 times over. For times just like this, Loud Cloud was Eraserhead's friend when they were in high school, All Might explained. But he was killed during a villain attack during their work studies before they could graduate. Izuku's blood ran cold. What? But he's my teacher. I was just copying Cat's homework so I could pass his stupid class. Things are different here, Aizawa said, his voice cold and his face stern. This is a different reality after all. Izuku nodded, falling silent. There were no more funny remarks, no more witty comebacks, just a painful silence until Gran Torino asked where the bathrooms were. He waddled out of the room before Aizawa could answer, muttering about how an old man's bladder is a lot smaller than it used to be. Yada yada yada. How did he die? Izuku dared to ask. I mean, you don't have to villain attack, Aizawa answered, forcing himself to breathe slowly. The building collapsed. I couldn't save him all for one's lackeys, All Might scoffed, grimacing. That damned bastard. Izuku's eyes widened with shock. All for one? You mean that Shigaraki guy we learned about him in history class? Nana Shimura and Gran Torino defeated him like 30 years ago. But Gran Torino died during the battle. It was this super bittersweet story. And of course Loud Cloud had present Mike help him perform this cringy interpretive dance to teach it. Instead of just reading from the book, Nana Shimura ended up retiring after that and raising her son. So she never passed on one for all, Katsuki added. And so All Might never got one for all, and never had to fight all for one. There was no need for a symbol of peace. Izuku nodded, ignoring Aizawa's confused expression. Exactly. Wait, so I don't exist in your reality? All Might blurted. But then who's the number one hero? Mirko? Izuku said. And technically you do exist, you work as a secretary for Yu High School. All Might gasped like the news was going to give his old ass a heart attack. Izuku decided not to mention the fact that Toshinori Yagi was also dating his mom in his reality. Don't worry Gramps, Izuku teased Mirko. And the other pros are amazing, the show goes, and frankly it's a lot better without you. Before Aizawa could ask about the quirk transferring detail, Gran Torino hobbled into the room. Are we ready to go yet? He asked. My knees are cramping. Stop whining, old man, Katsuki snapped. I'm not leaving until this asshole is gone. And my Deku comes back home. Izuku snickered. Aw, you miss your little boyfriend, huh? He's not my boyfriend. I'm not gay. Yes you are. And that's okay, I'm going to kill you all. Is the whittle baby upset? Do you need your milky? You whittle baby, Izuku teased, pinching Katsuki's fuming growling face. Here. Let's get you home so Clown Mike can wipe your whittle ass and change your nasty whittle diaper in a matter of seconds. Katsuki and Izuku were throwing punches. Aizawa sighed, sipping his coffee that was laced with booze and returning to his desk to finish grading papers. All Might gaped at him, thoroughly shocked that Aizawa, the high school teacher, didn't bother intervening. Errant. You going to stop them? All Might asked. Aizawa shrugged. Boys will be boys, they are gonna kill each other. All Might blurted. They'll be fine. Gran Torino chuckled, nudging All Might with his bony elbow. $20 on the quirkless kid. Katsuki and Izuku strolled down the street in the middle of the cracked road, searching for villains. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered illegal since they were trespassing on private abandoned property. But Toshinori said this was the type of place villains frequented. He was against the two boys going villain hunting all by themselves. But Aizawa convinced him he'd keep a close eye on them stealthily, and from a distance so as to not scare away the villains who would underestimate two 50-year-old boys. This is fun, don't you think? Katsuki said, leisurely stuffing his hands in his pockets. You and me doing vigilante work together under the moonlight. Izuku shrugged. I guess so. But I kind of feel like I'm going to die. What if? No what ifs. Remember, Katsuki said with a devious smile. We're just two dudes going hunting. You mean trespassing on abandoned government-owned land and acting as bait for dangerous criminals who could and probably will decapitate us the first chance they get. Katsuki's smile widened, and he nodded cheerily. Yup, sounds pretty fucking great. Don't it? Izuku sighed, dropping his gaze to the cracked cement at his feet. He kicked a pebble, trying his hardest to calm his nerves. I love hero work, just as much as the next aspiring hero, Izuku said. But I don't know how I feel about being a vigilante. They kill people, don't they? Katsuki shrugged. Depends on the situation. But yet Izuku shook her head. It feels wrong to kill people regardless of what they've done. If a rabies-infected rat was hurling at your face, and you had the choice to shoot it with a pistol, would you pull the trigger? No, it's a living, breathing creature. I'd find another way to deal with it. Okay, let me rephrase it. What if this rat has a brand new disease? And if you don't kill it, the disease will spread and kill hundreds of people. What are you gonna do then? Can I knock it out? Or like contain it? Yeah, you can, but it'll get up again sooner or later. It's gonna spread disease. You'd have to knock it out again every day. Izuku frowned. Fine. I guess I'd kill it. It's just a rat anyways. Alright, what if it was a bunny, cute gray and fluffy bunny, with a new deadly disease coming right at you, still shooting it? Izuku grimaced. I'll do what I have to. Katsuki smirked. That's vigilante work. Sometimes you have to do things that others see as immoral. But it's for the greater good. Eraserhead, back in his vigilante era, killed a few villains too. One of them was a human trafficker who had over a dozen children locked away in a cellar. If Eraserhead hadn't killed that villain, deactivating the mutaquirk that the villain was using on the children, then those kids never would have been found. But Mr. Aizawa could've just used his quirk, Izuku argued. The villain didn't have to die. The villain was registered as quirkless, Katsuki explained, and he was armed and dangerous. There are a lot of circumstances where a hero can't just arrest a villain, and there are some circumstances where a hero is abusing their power, doing more harm than good, and needs to be taken out. What if a hero is, I don't know, beating their spouse and torturing their kids? Are you going to let them stay in the public eye? Izuku frowned, shaking his head solemnly. No, of course not. And taking their hero license wouldn't do much. I guess vigilantes are pretty underestimated. Katsuki nodded. It's because they are so underground. Big corporations like the Hero Commission don't like to acknowledge them, since those heroes don't help their funding. Heroes like Hawks, though, rake in a couple $100 every time a civilian is saved. Geez, Izuku muttered. That's pretty corrupt. Yeah, hero society sucks, Katsuki muttered. But that's why me and my Izuku are gonna be heroes. We want to change the game. Well, I do. At least Izuku wants to be a vigilante like Eraserhead, staying underground where he doesn't have to follow any laws. I want to be in the spotlight like Mirko Edgeshot and Best Jeanist, which means I won't be able to kill people. But I want to change the public's view on heroes. They are people too, not just shiny icons. They are just like everyone else. I think Mirko is doing a great job of spreading that message. I've always thought she was a great hero, Izuku said. She's badass. Katsuki finished for him, and hot Izuku's face was swallowed by his blush, thankfully hidden in the night's darkness. Yeah, he blurted. But I thought you didn't like women. It was Katsuki's turn to blush, nearly choking on his own spit, as Izuku called him out. I don't, he blurted. I'm gay, but Izuku is bi. And he's got a fucking scrapbook of all the people he finds attractive. You looked through it, didn't you? Izuku didn't even try to hide his boisterous laughter. Katsuki blushed with embarrassment, hiding his face in his hands. It's not my fault, I wanted to see the hype about the stupid fucking Valentine's Day special calendar. And Izuku just happened to have Mirko's page right after Hawk's. So you were looking for Hawk's nudes. If you two problem children don't stop yelling about my colleague's naked pictures, I'm leaving you here for the villains to find you, Aizawa said from his hiding place on top of one of the buildings. Immediately the boys were stone cold silent. I totally forgot he was watching us, Izuku whispered. Katsuki nodded numbly. I think I'm going to die, that was so fucking embarrassing. A few beats of silence passed. Izuku kicked another pebble. So that scrapbook, where does your Izuku keep it? Seriously, Midoriya, Aizawa hissed. I'm sorry, Izuku cried. I'm just curious. Mirko is really pretty, she's great. But Hawks is better, Katsuki snickered. Actually, the best in there was probably Snipe. Who would have thought? Quiet. I think I hear something, Aizawa blurted. The boys froze. Katsuki rubbed his hands together to generate some sweat. While Izuku charged up 15% of one for all seconds ticked by. Nothing happened. Izuku frowned. I don't hear anything. Yeah, I just wanted you two to shut up and stop talking about my coworkers' naked bodies, Aizawa grumbled. Now Simon, we're almost at the villain hotspot. Izuku and Katsuki groaned, dragging themselves forward. You're a bullshit liar, Katsuki huffed, ignoring the warning glance. All Might shot him for his vile language. There's no way that actually happened. I'm not lying, Izuku chuckled. It happened right in front of me. Katsuki scoffed. All Might, tell this moron to stop lying. All Might frowned. I'm not sure what you two are talking about, but I suggest you quiet down, it's late. And we're in a very dangerous area, dude. I'm being so serious, Izuku continued, ignoring the pro hero. I was sitting there, eyes wide, hands tied behind my back, and Mr. Punt. Aizawa barged into the villain's base in a Batman costume and beat the shit out of all 12 of the lackeys. Why the hell would Eraserhead wear a Batman costume? I don't know, but I'm not lying, I swear I don't own a Batman costume, Aizawa grumbled. Izuku pouted. This is exactly why my reality is better, guys. You all are so boring. And mean. I'm not mean, All Might exclaimed. No, I guess you're not, Izuku said, just really annoying. I'm not SHH, shut up, Gramps. It's late, and we're in a very dangerous area, Izuku mocked. All Might just huffed and shut his mouth. The four of them, Izuku, Katsuki, All Might, and Eraserhead, were taking a casual stroll down the abandoned streets a ways out of the city. It was a villain hotspot, All Might claimed, and there was an underground 𝗧𝗵𝗲 bar that many villains frequented. When asked how and why he knew that, All Might waved the question away and told them to stay focused. No, Izuku said, tucking his hands into his pockets. As he bumped shoulders with Katsuki, the blonde just scowled at him. It was much past his bedtime. I've always wanted to be a vigilante. I've read a lot of comic books, so I think I'd make a pretty good one. I know my stuff. I don't recommend being a vigilante, All Might butted in. Not only do they act against the law, but I've never met a vigilante who didn't have a sour attitude. Eraserhead, who was following closely from the shadows, scoffed under his breath. Izuku defended him before he could even open his mouth. You better watch it, Peepaw. Eraserhead is the second best hero, pro or vigilante, to roam the earth. So what if he's killed a few fuckers? It's for the greater good. And his attitude isn't sour. You're just a pussy, All Might sighed, bowing his head as a grimace washed over his sharp facial features. I don't think I'll ever get used to you cursing at me, young Midoriya. Hopefully we can find the villain responsible and send you back where you belong, Izuku scoffed. Asshole, don't worry, I don't want to be around you either. He nudged Katsuki again, a sly smile on his face in response to Katsuki's death stare. Aw, don't look so pissy, man. What, need your diaper changed? Katsuki grumbled and sidestepped away from Izuku. You're fucking annoying, he muttered. Leave me alone, don't be like that, Katsuki. Izuku cried. I'm just bored as. I'll go be bored somewhere else. I'm fucking tired. It's not even midnight, okay? You tired me the fuck out, boys. Quiet, Eraserhead snapped. I hear commotion. You better not just be trying to shut us up, Izuku grumbled. Aizawa furrowed his eyebrows. Why would I do that? Izuku pouted again, crossing his arms over his chest. See, absolutely boring. The sound of panicked footsteps made the four of them fall silent. All Might pulled himself into the shadows of a nearby alleyway, while Eraserhead hung low atop the adjacent building. Katsuki and Izuku ducked and rolled behind a dumpster outside of a convenience store with broken windows, catching and holding their breath as the suspect turned the corner and rushed down the street. He couldn't have been older than 15, the same age as Izuku and Katsuki. His skin was pale as computer paper, but under the midnight moonlight, it looked almost grayish, not to mention how terrified he looked, eyes wide and any remaining color draining from his face and goosebump-infested arms. He clutched a school bag to his chest as he ran, which looked stuffed with belongings, and glanced over his shoulder every now and then as if something was chasing him. All Might was quick to step into the street and pull the kid aside, announcing his obnoxiously redundant catchphrase, fear not, he told the kid, holding him still with his massive hands on his shoulders. For I am here. That seemed to make the kid even more frantic. He wriggled under All Might's grasp, muttering about how he was in serious danger and needed to get out of there now. All Might frowned, leaning forward to glance down the street. It was a ghost town, the same it had been when he, Izuku, Katsuki, and Eraserhead searched for the past couple hours. Please calm down, kiddo, All Might sweated nervously. DDO, you mind telling me your name? The kid scoffed, and finally wiggled out of All Might's hold, only to have the pro-hero clamp them down again. Giving his left shoulder a gentle squeeze, he glanced down the street, paranoid, frenzied, and then looked back at All Might with a pointed scowl. It's Shinsu, he said. Now let go of me. Seriously? All Might furrowed his eyebrows. Why are you in such a hurry? Why are you such a cockmunch? Izuku snickered from his hiding spot. I like him, he told Katsuki, nudging the blonde's elbow with his own. Katsuki rolled his eyes. You only like him because he doesn't like All Might. Izuku's smile tripled in size. Fuck yeah. It's about time someone else realizes how much of a shit-stained pissboy he is. Katsuki smacked Izuku on the back of his head, then dug his fingers into the green curls and pushed the boy's freckled face down inches from the concrete. Watch it. You fucktard, Izuku hissed and shoved Katsuki's arm away from him, muttering even more colorful words under his breath before the two of them could fall into a full-on screaming match. Eraserhead practically materialized behind them, his scruffy face contorted into a scowl. Could the two of you keep it down for 60 seconds? Izuku smirked. Sorry sir, I can only do 45 seconds at a time. Anything more will cost you. I'm willing to pay you all the money I have, if it means y'all shut the fuck up, Katsuki grumbled. Izuku frowned, properly turning to face his future teacher. You should let me kick his ass, sensei. I'm tired of his shit. By that logic, I should kick your ass. Katsuki screamed. PFFT. You could fucking try. Goldilocks, I'll kill you. I'm already dying looking at your ugly ass, dude. There's nothing in the world that could do more damage than the creases on your greasy forehead, Katsuki charged. And as much as Aizawa wanted to see them brawl, he knew there were more important things at stake. Quickly and quietly, the underground hero used his binding cloth to shut both of the problem children up. If you're done, Aizawa snapped, we have more important things to get to. Mr. Symbol of Peace over there is scaring the suspect away with his mansplaining. After a few beats of Katsuki and Izuku acting like civil human beings, and after Katsuki stopped seething like a rabid animal, Aizawa removed his cloth and led the two boys over to All Might and Shinsu. Just a bit confused, All Might went on. You're running from something, obviously terrified, and I'm the #1 hero in Japan, probably the entire world. But you won't let me help you because I don't need your help, Shinsu said. Now seriously, let go of my arm. I need to get out of here. But I can help young Shinsu. Pardon him, Eraserhead said, scowling at All Might as he approached the two, Katsuki and Izuku behind him. He's an egomaniac. We'd like to ask you a few questions. Do you have time to answer? Shinsu shifted, awkwardly swallowing the lump in his throat. Aizawa's stare forced All Might to release his grip on the person's wrist, but it also forced Shinsu to stay absolutely still. He thought he was dreaming, already running into All Might in the rundown part of town. But here was Eraserhead, his favorite hero of all time, face to face with him inches away. Would it be inappropriate to ask for an autograph? And not really, Shinsu muttered. I have to go. Where to? Aizawa pressed. Shinsu gulped. Away from here. What's here that you need to get away from? Shinsu glanced at All Might. Besides this bozo, Izuku beamed, quite literally. But Aizawa kept him back so as to not scare off the kid. Yes, kid. Aside from this bozo, I feel very disrespected right now considering my place. As the number shut it, Aizawa hissed, go on, kid. Well, someone is after me, Shinsu stammered. It's fine, really, you don't have to get involved or waste your time, Mr. Eraserhead, sir. I can handle it. Aizawa glanced at the packed bag tight in Shinsu's grip. He hummed. You're running away from home? Shinsu froze. It was illegal for a kid to run away. He could be thrown in juvie, or a boy's home, or worse, he could get picked up by a human trafficker. Would Eraserhead turn him and drop him off somewhere even worse than his dad's place? Was this even Eraserhead, or just some villain's quirk that copied and cloned people? Or was Shinsu so malnourished and sleep-deprived and beaten and battered that he was hallucinating? Relax, Aizawa said gently, taking the bag from Shinsu's hands. I won't turn you in. I'm gonna call my husband and have him come pick you up. All right, we can figure out what's happening tomorrow morning after you've had a good night's rest. What? All Might blurted. Aizawa, you can't just take in every random stray that you find. What if he has a villainous quirk or something? What if he's dangerous? Before Shinsu could sprint away, the sound of screaming echoed down the street. Shit, 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 shit. Have to go. We have to shit, Shinsu cried, his hands shaking and his breath tripling. Eraserhead was quick to hand the bag of Shinsu's belongings to All Might, cracking his knuckles as he stepped up to the man jogging down the street. He wore a white tank top and stained sweatpants, and there was a wooden bat slung over his shoulder. His purple hair was scruffy and unwashed, matching his underarms that the group could smell from a mile away. Hitoshi, you brat, the man scoffed, calling the heroes really did everything you learned go to fucking waste. They can't help you. Eraserhead stepped up, but Izuku and Katsuki were quicker. 3 explosions from each of his palms hurtled Katsuki up and forward, and he aimed a shot right at the man's face, scorching his face. Katsuki ducked and rolled out of the way afterwards, and Izuku wasted no time throwing a right hook straight into the man's gut, then a left hook to his jaw, and then a kick to the groin and an elbow to his mouth, chipping his moldy front teeth. Katsuki shot another explosion at the man's back, While Izuku snatched the bat and whacked the guy over the head, he dropped to the concrete unconscious. Eraserhead nodded, arms crossed over his chest. Not bad problem, children, he chuckled. Teamwork does make the dream work, All Might chimed. Izuku rolled his eyes. It was cool until you opened your mouth. Shit, Might 𝗏𝗧𝗃 elbowed him. Don't be an ass, that's rich coming from you. Izuku snickered. You wanna fucking go shit, nerd. I'll blast the freckles off your fucking face. Nah, Izuku said with a fake yawn. You're just grouchy cause you haven't had your diaper changed. Yet you little alright, that's enough. Aizawa interrupted. All Might take Midoriya and Bakugo home. It's almost 1 in the morning, and I bet their parents are worried sick. Present Mike should be here any second, so I'll stay here with Shinsu and wait for his arrival. The two of you have my number, right? Izuku beamed. Yeah, thanks, don't text me. Unless it's an emergency, Aizawa tells them. But he knows the words fell on deaf ears. Izuku had already compiled memes upon memes to send to Eraserhead, mostly to piss him off in the early hours of the morning. The teacher waved them off. And just a few minutes later, Present Mike's bright yellow pickup truck covered in stickers and goofy spray paint swerved into view. He just barely avoided trampling Shinsu's dad with the massive wheels, though nobody would've complained if he did. The pale purple-haired boy smacked directly into Izuku, tumbling to the ground and spilling his backpack full of belongings all over the road. 𝗏𝗧𝗃 immediately lit up his palms with small explosions ready to detonate if the boy started attacking. But he didn't, and after a moment of realization, 𝗏𝗧𝗃 quickly knelt down and helped pick everything up. I'm super sorry, Izuku mumbled, helping as best as he could. I should've moved out of the way. You didn't even see me, the purple-haired boy snapped. Don't apologize, it was my fault. I wasn't watching where I was going. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 handed the boy his bag, his eyes lingering on the giant bluish-black mark on his pale neck. Even with the silver moon as their only light, the mark was still disturbingly dominant against the boy's twiggy body. What are you running from anyways? 𝗏𝗏𝗃 asked. You okay? I'm fine, the boy answered harshly, completely ignoring the first question. He took his bag and stuffed his belongings down, hoping that they wouldn't fall out again as he started running. He didn't expect to run into 2 other kids his age strolling along in this impoverished town after midnight. But it was whatever, not his problem, didn't matter, didn't affect him. What did affect him was the next person he bumped into, the underground hero Eraserhead. Holy shit, the boy blurted, his eyes scanning the tall dark figure before him. No way. Aizawa gently put his hands on the boy's shoulders. Relax, will you? I'm not gonna hurt you, so no need to panic. Eraserhead, the boy blurted. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 chuckled, tugging Izuku along to join Eraserhead. I'm guessing you're a fan, he said to the boy. Aizawa ignored them. What's your name, kid? Shinsu Hitoshi. The boy stammered. What are you doing here? Aizawa nodded to Izuku and 𝗏𝗏𝗃. Babysitting apparently, he told Shinsu. But it's getting late, and it's best if we head back. We didn't make any progress today. Maybe tomorrow. Do you have anywhere to go? Shinsu shifted on his feet awkwardly. No sir, that's fine, Aizawa said a bit too casually. You can come home with me, if yowed, like I called my husband a few minutes ago. So he should be here any second. As for the 2 of you, he scowled at Izuku and 𝗏𝗏𝗃, who were mumbling and whispering among themselves. Of course. They immediately fell silent. The 2 of you better get home immediately. I don't want to get any calls from bitchy parents, understand? Izuku and 𝗏𝗏𝗃 nodded quickly. Aizawa pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to 𝗏𝗏𝗃. It's my number in case you get into any trouble. Don't be stupid, kids. We want. Izuku beamed. Speak for yourself. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 chuckled. Thanks, Eraserhead. You 2 know how to get out of here? Aizawa asked. Mike should be here soon, and he can give you a ride. Nah, it's fine, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 said. Izuku's stepdad Toshinori is picking us up. Izuku cringed. He's not my stepdad. Well, he's dating your mom. Stop, 𝗏𝗏𝗃. That's so weird. But it's true. I'm going to vomit. Do you think that's enough? Aizawa blurted. Toshinori is my secretary. I don't want to hear the disgusting details of his love life. This is the end of my life, Izuku whispered. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 playfully smacked the freckled boy's back. A wide smile painted over his face. Aw, don't be like that, man. Don'cha think it's kinda cool? Absolutely not, bummer. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 laughed. Whatever, we're off. Eraserhead. Nice meeting you, Shinsu didn't answer. He watched silently as Izuku and 𝗏𝗏𝗃 headed off in the direction they came from, in the direction of Shinsu's father. So about this goofy quirk of yours, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 said a few minutes into walking back. He and Izuku were shoulder to shoulder, kicking the same soda can. Along with them, it scraped uncomfortably against the cracked concrete. But Izuku punted it anyway because he wanted the soda can to join them on their journey out of the rundown town. It was an absent-minded wish, he thought, this silly little colorful can. Izuku kicked it. Yeah, what about it? Izuku asked. You got it from Toshinori, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 said. What does it do? Izuku grimaced. I got it from All Might, not my mom's weird bony boyfriend. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 laughed. Whatever, same thing, no way, forget it. I just want to know what the quirk is. Can you fly? Not yet. Not yet, All Might said. It's like a stockpiling quirk. One person gets it, and when they pass it on, their own quirk is passed with it. So there's like 6 quirks in this one quirk that I'll like unlock eventually. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 frowned. So you can't do anything with it? I can, Izuku muttered. Sorry. I didn't catch that last part you were mumbling. Izuku scowled. I said it breaks my bones. 𝗏𝗏𝗃's jaw dropped halfway. To hell, it breaks your bones. Only if I use too much of it, Izuku stammered. I can get like 3% without it hurting 5. If I stiffen up all my muscles. Katsuki shook his head. That's terrible. Izuku shrugged. Better than being quirkless. Silence. Katsuki kicked the can. Is it silence? Izuku kicked the can. It is. You like your new quirk, even though it breaks your bones? Izuku nodded. Wouldn't trade the world for it. It's an honor, really. Silence. Katsuki kicked the can. You want to show me? Show you. Katsuki nodded. Just 3%. Okay, silence. Izuku focused one for all's energy flowing through his body, pushing it all down to his left foot, burning, pulsing with green electric energy. His shoe was steaming a little big and Katsuki was starting to have second thoughts. But before he could do anything, Izuku kicked the can. It went flying. Holy shit, yeah, Izuku chuckled. But now my foot is sore. Is it broken? Izuku shook his head, smiling brighter than ever. No, just sore. Silence. Katsuki stared at where the can used to be. If you like your quirk, and it makes you happy, then I don't mind fighting side by side with you. That was actually pretty cool. Izuku's eyes shimmered under the midnight moonlight. Really, you think it's cool? Katsuki laughed and ruffled Izuku's hair. Yeah, you little nerd, you're pretty damn cool. Izuku knew he was dreaming. It was a nudging, lucid feeling in the back of his mind. He knew none of this was real. Well, maybe real, but not external. There was black mist covering his entire body from his nose and below, and part of him wondered how he was breathing. Or if he was breathing at all. His surroundings were borderline psychedelic, with purple and blue spirals, some golden squiggles and puffy pink clouds. Speckles of orange danced around the air, and 6 figures materialized around him. It was like he was being sacrificed to some sort of LSD god. He tried to talk, but the mist soaked into his mouth. The yellow figure shook her head. Don't speak, she said. You are considered an intruder here. Defense mechanisms will kill you. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows. How the hell could he be an intruder? Not only did he not know where he was, but he also wanted to get out. The gray figure stepped forth. We're running out of time, he said. None of this is your fault. Not really, it's us to blame. We were just trying to protect him. His poor explanation only made a million more questions blossom on Izuku's tied tongue. The green figure stepped up to its better. If we just show you. Yeah, Izuku couldn't respond. He was pushed backward off some sort of diving board. He was falling for minutes, or maybe hours, maybe even days, before his back hit a pool of water, and he submerged into the darkness. It was all a dream, he told himself. But everything was so disturbingly vivid. He was in his usual seat at Yuyui, sitting behind Katsuki. His notebook was in front of him, and a pen was tight in his hand. His eyes were aimed like lasers up at the board, where Mr. Aizawa was droning on about work studies. He didn't have a very good speaking voice when he was tired. But Izuku always knew to cut the man some slack. He was overworked and underpaid. And yet he still showed up to work every single day without fail. The minutes ticked by. Aizawa kept talking, Sato was snoring, and Ojiro was kicking the back of Takoyami's seat. And Ida was about to burst a blood vessel, because Kaminari was playing a game on his phone under the desk, and Zero kept making tiny tape balls and throwing them at the ceiling to see how many he could stick up there without anybody noticing. Mina noticed, and she was fighting back her laughter, especially when one fell into Hagakura's hair. She thought it was a spider and ended up a sobbing mess, her noise muffled by Kirishima, who was trying to make sure Zero didn't get in trouble. The whole thing was ridiculous and completely in character. Izuku thought he wanted to laugh along, maybe kick the back of Katsuki's chair to piss him off or something. Unless he was back in his own reality. Then he'd get Kat's attention just to see that annoyed smile. Kat was so patient with him, but also so strong and absolutely hilarious. They had the same sense of humor, which was really Izuku's favorite thing about the boy. Izuku had made friends with Deku's Kaken despite his strange, angry ways. But he missed Kat. He missed the feeling of his best friend's arm slung over his shoulder, the scent of the cologne he wore every day that his dad got him for his birthday. He missed ruffling Kat's hair, and in turn having his own hair ruffled. He missed beating the living shit out of the bullies back in middle school, and missed chasing the 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐵 dream. Most of all, he was planning on finally telling Kat how he felt. He was going to confess literally right after the bell rang. But when it did, he was transported months back in time to a completely different reality. He missed the anxiety building up, the urgent tapping on his desk, the mumbling under his breath that only dribbled out when he was in the panic zone. It was better than this fucking homesickness. Izuku sought it more of a disease. The dream had to end soon. Izuku thought there's no way it could go on this long. Izuku felt like he'd spent months in this trance, despite the fact that everyone else seemed to be living in the moment. Their only worry was not letting Mr. Aizawa notice that they were goofing off. Izuku tried to turn his head and look out the window, but he couldn't. His body was rigid, frozen. He could flicker his eyes around the room, see his friends making a fool of themselves, but he couldn't move. His leg bounced under his desk, but he wasn't the one bouncing it. It was like all his movements were predetermined, like he was reliving someone else's experience, like he had entered the body of another version of himself. Then it happened. A collision. The window shattered into a million pieces. The sudden gust of air shoving the students to the opposite wall. Izuku, who was closest to the window, smacked his head on the tiled floor, barely avoiding his desk that came crashing at him. Katsuki's eyes were wide with panic. As he scrambled to get to Izuku's side, Izuku wasn't sure why. That was Kaken, not Cat, and Kaken didn't like Deku. They weren't friends. Deku raised his hand to his head, feeling a warm sticky liquid seeping from a gash on his head. He pulled his hand back in front of his eyes. It was soaked with blood. Oh, Izuku thought, fucking great, the intruders came in a group of 17 for some reason. Deku counted them. And the information was transferred to Izuku, who was just reliving the memory. Mr. Aizawa was easily mowing them down, and the other students were working together to protect each other. But the blast had wounded most of them, and it seemed to be a losing battle. How long would it take the other staff to notice a breach in the building? How long would they have to fight these strangers with quirks amplified by drugs and weapons straight out of a movie? Deku groaned again and rolled over slowly, letting one for all course through his veins. Izuku had never known what it felt like to have a quirk, and honestly, he didn't like it. The green electric-like energy running rampant in his body felt like bugs crawling under his skin. There was too much pressure on his bones, like the energy was squeezing them and milking them for all they were worth. His muscles were pulsing with agony, but it was spread out enough to calm down to a dull ache. He was powerful, but he was bleeding out of the side of his head. He couldn't see straight, couldn't walk right. When someone grabbed him by the arm, Deku didn't even know where to strike. A syringe stabbed into his neck, and slowly he felt his energy being sucked away. Every alarm in his brain was going off, screaming at him to get away, to fight back, to do something. But he couldn't. Izuku was just a spectator in this situation. Deku had all the power drained. That was the word Izuku would use to describe how he felt. Energy was drained, time was drained, blood was drained. He felt even dizzier than he did before. How long ago was before? A couple of minutes, an hour? What kind of syringe sucked away his quirk anyways? Was it all for one? Had that damn doctor found a way to materialize the symbol of fear's quirk? That was really bad news for them. If it was true, really, Izuku had no fucking clue. He didn't care. He just wanted this all to stop. If he died, oh fucking well, the pain was far beyond unbearable now, so anything that could cut it short, Izuku was willing to try. The figures reappeared, and the scene melted back into the dark. Psychedelic Yellow held Izuku in her arms, gently smoothing his hair as the mist curled around his body. Once more, we aren't sure how it happened, she told Izuku. But we managed to pull ourselves out of that reality. In a sense, we couldn't let one for all be taken like that, Green added. But we couldn't exactly fight back either. Really, it's a mystery to us as well, Gray said. All we knew was that we needed to get out of there, and Midoriya Izuku had to come with us. Whatever god there is, or maybe just the force of nature in the universe, decided that there could only be one version of a person per reality. So you two switched. Izuku would have scoffed if he could have all this, because some idiots weren't prepared for a surprise attack. Talk about an unimaginative author. What a stupid explanation. Still, Izuku had to admit, it was pretty dope that a quirk had its own defense mechanism. One for all was truly a living power, and Deku had every right to feel honored enough to bear it. It was a lot of weight on your shoulders to carry around the most deadly weapon with fragments of 6 human souls attached to it. Izuku wasn't sure if he'd be able to handle it, let alone take it seriously. And before you ask, Blue said with a cheeky smile, no, we don't know how to get you back home. You'll just have to hang tight for a bit, maybe until our Midoriya finds that teacher of his and gets him to cancel his quirk. Orange scrunched up his nose, turning to Blue. Do you think he's smart enough to figure out it was us? Gray snorted, absolutely not. Let's have a little optimism, okay? Everyone. Yellow said. Toshinori didn't pick Midoriya for no reason. I have faith in him, so do I, Green added. Yeah, well, you guys are alone in that opinion, Gray grumbled. Rest easy, kid, you won't be going home for a long. While Izuku glared once again, he found another reason to be grateful for his quirklessness. Head never have to deal with these pretentious assholes. Izuku plopped on his bed, this time without Katsuki by his side. The blonde was currently downstairs trying to help Toshinori convince Izuku's mom and Katsuki's dad that they were safe. Apparently this wasn't the first time the two boys had snuck out late and nearly gave their single working parents a heart attack. It was strange being in this reality. Of course things were different. Izuku wouldn't expect a whole different dimension to be the same. What really shocked him was how smoothly everything flowed. This reality's Izuku was Kat's best friend. His mom hadn't put on all the stress weight. Kat's dad, after his wife passed, was more assertive and clear-spoken. Toshinori wasn't a self-absorbed creature molded by public image, and Izuku was being properly treated for his depression and anxiety. Things didn't have to be the way they were in Izuku's own dimension. Kaken didn't have to bully him, and sure, there were environmental factors like All Might's negative influence on the public and Mitsuki's ineffective parenting style. But at the end of the day, Izuku now understood that things could be different. Things could work if Kaken behaved differently. After all, they were old enough to understand right from wrong and learn to break bad habits. Wasn't it about time Izuku and Kaken got along? Izuku furrowed his eyebrows, scowling at the ceiling. His arms and legs stretched unceremoniously over his unmade bed. He liked Kaken, loved him, even, but he decided in that moment that he wouldn't put up with that boy's shit any longer. If Kaken loved Izuku like this Katsuki had told him, then he was going to have to put in the work and stop being such a such a stupid ass fucking shitfuck. Katsuki exclaimed, throwing Izuku's bedroom door open. As he stormed inside, Izuku bolted upright, alert. as Katsuki paced around his room, palms sparking and steaming. "I can't believe that asshole. What is it?" Izuku squeaked. Katsuki plopped down at the spinny chair by Izuku's desk. "My dad, he grounded me." Izuku rolled his eyes, a small chuckle falling from his lips as he fell back into his bed. "Well, yeah, we did come home at 3 in the morning last night. What did you think was gonna happen? But dude, I won't be able to help you get back home." Katsuki groaned. Izuku knew what he really meant to say. "I won't be able to get my Izuku back. I want to be the first person he sees when he comes home." It was bittersweet. Izuku thought he adored this Katsuki, and how he had the same explosive personality, yet less explosive behavior. His anger issues were less of actual issues, and more of a dancing candle flame that would never burn out in an odd way. It warmed Izuku. He liked it now. If he could only teach his Kaken how to control his anger like that. But that was a can of worms he wouldn't open just this second. "You could always just sneak out," Izuku offered. Katsuki snickered, resting his head on Izuku's desk. "Geez man. We stayed out late once. And now you think you're a bad boy." Izuku blushed with embarrassment, rolling around as his face heated up, burying under his blanket for protection. "And no, that's not it. I don't think I just thought maybe if." "Well, it's fine bro," Katsuki laughed. "I'm just teasing you. Sneaking out could work. My dad is a bit of an airhead, but I don't want to stress him out too much, "Yeah," Izuku agreed, his voice muffled by his comforter. "I understand. Speaking of stress, I actually have something to talk to you about." Katsuki quirked his eyebrows up, curious. "Yeah? I had a really weird dream last night, dude. I really don't want to hear anything else about Merku." "It's not ugh, you're so gross." Izuku laughed. "Gross, says the one with a porno mag of a bunch of heroes. Oh my god. Would you stop that?" Katsuki chuckled, shrugging with a devious glint in his red eyes. Just saying. But anyway, continue." Izuku huffed, crawling to sit on the edge of his bed, so Katsuki could see his disappointed pout. "Anyway," he went on, "I had a dream about the predecessors of my quirk. They were trying to tell me something, but it was so blurry, probably because I only got 2.5 hours of sleep." Katsuki nodded. "Do you think they know what happened to the villain who hit you with the dimension quirk?" Izuku shifted in his spot. "About that, I don't think there was a villain. I don't think I dimension jumped because of a quirk, or at least because of someone else's quirk." "Wait, do you mean I think it was my quirk that sent me here? But I know I didn't do it, so I think it was the predecessors. And I think they were trying to tell me a way to get back home." "Oh man," Katsuki said. "This is great. Now all we gotta do is call Eraserhead and have him cancel your quirk." "Yeah, in theory," Izuku said sheepishly. "But it's just a theory. I think I should try to get more information first." "But how? It's not like you can just walk up to these guys and ask them. They're infused into your quirk, right? Well, they were able to talk to me through my dreams. Maybe if I go back to sleep, I'll see them again." "Oh," Katsuki said. "Sounds simple enough." Silence fell over them. Izuku sat unmoving, embarrassed. For some reason, Katsuki looked at him. "Well, are you gonna go to sleep?" "I don't know," Izuku muttered. "Are you gonna turn off the light?" Katsuki sucked his teeth, begrudgingly getting up to flick off the light. Sunlight still streamed in from the cracks in the curtains, but there wasn't much they could do about it. Izuku got comfortable under his covers, but his eyes stayed peeled open. Katsuki looked at him, this time scowling. "Dude, it's not that hard, just fall asleep." Izuku shuffled, groaning. "It is that hard? I can't fall asleep on demand." Katsuki snorted. "Sounds like a skill issue. Want me to knock you out?" "No," Izuku scoffed. "Not only would that hurt, but I don't think that's the same as falling asleep." "Fine, I guess that makes sense. Want me to get you some sleeping pills? I'd rather not ingest any more unfamiliar drugs while I'm in this dimension. The sertraline every morning is enough." "Alright, how about a bedtime story?" "No lullaby. I've got a killer singing voice. I'm trying to sleep." I got it. How about some warm milk?" Izuku opened his mouth to make another dismissive comment, but he quickly snapped it closed. Katsuki fought back the urge to laugh at him as the freckled boy snuggled under his covers to hide his blush. "Is there chocolate milk? Maybe. Do you want some?" Izuku nodded. The blankets shifted with him. "PFFT, okay loser, one warm chocolate milk coming right up." Katsuki headed back downstairs into the battlefield, where Toshinori was getting a stern lecture from Izuku's mom and Katsuki's dad. The twiggy blonde man, who stood almost a head taller than Masaru and 2 heads taller than Inko, looked like he was about to cry. He kept apologizing and fidgeting with his hands, his eyes darting around nervously. "Dad, lay off a little," Katsuki said flippantly as he weaved through their conversation while he made his way into the kitchen. "You two in Kasen. It's not Toshinori-san's fault, it's mine. And you already grounded me, so don't waste any more time on it." "Okay." Masaru frowned, joining his son in the kitchen. "Katsuki, I appreciate you admitting your wrongdoings," his dad said. "But at the end of the day, you're still a child. Toshinori is an adult, and he should be held accountable for not telling us where our kids went. What if you had gotten hurt? I'm not a toddler anymore. I can take care of myself, and Izuku can too." Not saying I'm doubting your capabilities, but we have to be realistic." "I am being realistic." "Realistically, if worst comes to worst, Izuku knows 1,000,001 ways to kill someone, and my quirk is pretty damn strong." "Katsuki, Dad, I'm serious. Just lay off the old man. Why don't the 3 of you go out to lunch or something and leave you and Izuku all alone?" Inko butted in. "Absolutely. Not I love you both. But you are troublemakers through and you're grounded, Masaru added. Once we're finished talking to Toshinori, you and I are going home, understood Katsuki sighed. But he didn't push it. He knew how much effort his dad put into being assertive, and it'd make him a total dirtbag to lash out. Still, he wanted to stay with Izuku. They were so close to figuring everything out. Kat was so close to having his Izuku home. It was driving him crazy. Katsuki took the warm mug of chocolate milk, which was pretty much just hot chocolate at this point, and returned to Izuku's room. His green curls were sprawled out over his pillow, and his arms and legs were lazily spread out around him. His lips were parted ever so slightly, and his chest rose and fell in tandem to the humming fan in the corner of the room. Katsuki rolled his eyes and placed the chocolate milk on the nightstand. He grabbed his backpack and headed back downstairs, where his dad was waiting. Izuku sat up like a zombie rising from the dead. His arms and legs felt like lead underwater, and he could barely trudge through the mountains of blankets and stuffed animals pinning him to the bed. He was exhausted more than had ever been before, probably because he hadn't taken his medicine in a while. But also the lingering energy he had felt in the dream was tingling on his skin, sucking the life out of him. He remembered the dream in snippets, flashes of information that didn't belong to him. He was borrowing memories that belonged to another version of himself, memories that he really did not want to have. Izuku slunk out of his bed and dragged himself to the bathroom, trying and failing to scrub the aftereffects of a sleepless night off his face. The mirror was foggy, probably from Inko's morning routine, but Izuku could still see himself. Not that he really wanted to. The bags under his eyes were a dark reddish purple, and his face looked too pale to be his own. He looked skinnier than he did when he first arrived in this reality 2 weeks ago, scrawnier, like months, years of hard work and training had gone to waste. Izuku flicked the bathroom light off. As he exited, he stared at the stairs that led down into the living room, scowling with the power of 1,000 suns. Gotham Stairs' head probably collapse from exhaustion if he tried to go down them right now. But he couldn't go back to his room and sleep after learning the cause of the reality switch. So he compromised. He sat at the top of the stairs, resting his arms on his knees and his face on his arms. His mind was fuzzy and his throat was dry and his stomach was empty. He knew he should go downstairs. A bowl of frosted flakes would be fantastic. But Izuku wasn't gonna risk falling down the fucking stairs, and anyways he was busy eavesdropping on the heated conversation happening in the kitchen. I don't care what kind of important hero business you had going on. Inko cried, they are children. Izuku is my child. What if something had gone wrong? What if my boy didn't come home? Can you even comprehend the damage that would do to me as his mother, Ms. Midoriya? I can assure you I'm more than qualified to take care of 2 measly children. All might. I'm only going to say this once, Inko hissed, jabbing his chest with her index finger. Her scowl was powerful, forcing a tidal wave of guilt to rush over the hero's mind. I respect you as a hero, am grateful for everything you've done for our society. But you cannot act like you have everything under control. You are not God. There was a chance last night that my boy wouldn't make it home because of your ignorance and impulsiveness. No matter how slim that chance may be, as long as he lives under my roof, I will never risk it ever. Do I make myself clear? All Might swallowed the lump in his throat. Yes, Mom. I don't want him training with you anymore, Inko added. Not until you've pulled yourself together. But Miss Midoriya, no, I've made my decision. I don't want to hear it. You're lucky I stopped Mitsuki from tearing you to shreds, you stupid himbo. I'd fucking rip your tonsils out if it weren't for my damn husband. Mitsuki, honey, please calm down, Masaru said, his voice shaky and quiet. He's the #1 hero. You can't pick a fight with the #1 hero. He's right, All Might said. I've done so much good for the people. How could you possibly harbor so much hate for me? I want nothing more than to train young Midoriya to be as great as me and live up to my name. No offense, Miss Midoriya, but you can't baby him forever. Just because I'm not risking his life doesn't mean I'm babying him. Inko scoffed. I've lost enough in my lifetime. So hear my heart, Toshinori. I love my son, and I physically, mentally, and emotionally can't afford to put his life in jeopardy. If and when he gets into Yui, my decision may change. But for now, don't come around him any longer. I don't want to see your face around this area anymore. All Might sputtered out a nervous, borderline embarrassed laugh. But you can't just ban me from this part of town. I'm All Might. I'm the greatest hero of all time. It's my duty to be everywhere at once. Inko pinched the bridge of her nose, letting out an exhausted sigh. Get the fuck out of my house, and don't come back until you've grown the hell up. Katsuki, who was sitting at the kitchen table chomping on some All Might-themed cereal, snapping his neck in the adult's direction in all his 15 years of life. This was the first time he'd ever heard his mom's best friend utter a curse word, and to All Might of all people, Katsuki and his parents were absolutely flabbergasted. All Might gave a small nod and quickly left the premises. Izuku fought back his laughter and climbed down the stairs. Inko caught him in a hug when he was on the second to last step, bawling into his collarbone. She was an ugly crier, but Izuku didn't care. He held his mom in a tight hug, assuring her that he was here, he was okay, and he was safe. There was nothing to cry about, not on her end. Izuku, well, he was a different story. He gently pulled away from the hug, giving his mom a weak smile, then headed to the kitchen to get some cereal. He had to fight the urge to burn the whole place down. Not only was there no frosted flakes, But the entire fucking house, only had one type of cereal. All Might Munch Detroit Smash with Maysusets marshmallows. Holy hell, Izuku groaned, moping over to the kitchen table. I'm going to swan dive off the roof of the building. If I have to stay here any longer. Katsuki rolled his eyes. He had gotten used to Izuku's unsettling language by now, even though it never failed to make him a little sick to his stomach. He had a lot of things to process in his mind. But first he needed to focus on the issue at hand, getting his Izuku back home. You're being dramatic, Katsuki grumbled, as Izuku plopped down beside him at the table. It's not even bad cereal, okay? It's ugly, Izuku complained, tipping the near-empty box, so the remaining cereal tumbled into his bowl. They're shaped like fucking ass. Why would anyone want to eat these? Oh my god, is that hair? Will you stop screaming so fucking early in the goddamn morning? Katsuki snapped. Unlike you. I didn't get a good night's sleep. Cry about it, Blasty. I really need to get rid of you. What you need to get rid of is that zit on your colossal-sized forehead. That poor zit is drowning in your greasy skin. Set him free, you're a piece of shit. Do you hear that? Izuku whispered. If you stop running your big-ass mouth, you can hear the zit screaming for help, 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 someone get this grimy motherfucker to wash his face. Izuku mocked in a fake, high-pitched voice. Katsuki punched him, and Izuku dodged. The two were wrestling again in a matter of milliseconds, writhing on the ground like lion cubs. Katsuki yanked Izuku's mop of green curls, and Izuku chomped down on Katsuki's ear. They were kicking and screaming and scrambling around, but eventually Izuku had his legs wrapped around Katsuki's torso, and his arm around the boy's neck, securing him in a headlock. Panting, Katsuki frantically tapped Izuku's arm, admitting defeat. Izuku pushed him off and hopped to his feet with a victorious smile. You're going to be so fucked. When Deku gets back, you think I'm tough to beat? That motherfucker has 6 quirks, dude. 6, he's going to kick your fucking ass. Katsuki fought to swallow the lump in his throat. 6. Since when does he have 6? Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Izuku chuckled. He held out his hand for Katsuki to take, pulling the blonde to his feet. They sat back down at the table, continuing to eat their breakfast. So I've got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first? Katsuki scoffed. Bad news, lovely. So the bad news is that there's absolutely nothing we can do besides hope. And I guess we could pray. But that hasn't done jack shit for me. So I think we should stick to blind optimism. Katsuki furrowed his eyebrows, confused. What the hell are you talking about? Izuku smirked, taking a bite of his cereal. He finished chewing quickly, trying to ignore the weird shape of the food in his mouth. I'm talking about the good news, which is I had this super weird dream about what happened in this reality right before the switch. So now I know how to undo it and get back home. But there's absolutely nothing we can do besides hope and pray. You can pray, I'm just gonna hope. Katsuki groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. With annoyance, elaborate, nerd. Izuku gasped dramatically. Well, look at how the tables have turned. The Bakugo Katsuki is asking me, Midoriya Izuku, to talk more. Who would have thought? I'm going to bite off your tongue if you don't stay on topic. Do you think about these sorts of things before you say them? Or are you just accidentally violently kinky? Izuku, shut the fuck up and talk. Those are kind of one or the other orders. You're gonna have to pick one. Jesus fucking Christ. I hate my life. You're talking to God. What a cute little Christian boy. We should dress you up in a little plaid skirt and a white blouse. Would you like that, Kaken? How do we get my Izuku back? Katsuki snapped. I'm seriously sick of your shit. Izuku laughed, pushing his cereal away. All right, well, according to the dream, some group of villains attacked Yui. While we were in class, nobody saw it coming. Deku hit his head and was unable to fight back, and pretty much all of the other students were injured from the blast. As well, some dude was using a syringe to suck out one for all from Deku's bloodstream. I think it was pretty inefficient, but whatever works for him, I guess. Focus, you idiot. Right, yeah, anyways, the little people of the quirk, I don't really know how to explain them. I think they are the previous users, maybe like fragments of souls. Who fucking cares? They felt the quirk being stolen and yeeted themselves into another reality on accident to protect themselves, and obviously Deku went with them. And I guess the universe didn't want more than one Midoriya Izuku in a certain reality at any given time, so I was thrown into this reality. Okay, but what about the going back in time part? You said you were thrown months backwards. Was that one for all too? Izuku shrugged. Probably. I don't know, maybe it's so that we have time to prepare for the attack. Holy shit, so we're gonna have to wait months. Not exactly, Izuku said. If Deku is anything like me, then he's probably searching for a way to get home right now once he remembers the incident. Or at least gets a few clues. Hell, probably go find Eraserhead and have him cancel one for all long enough to send him home. So we have to wait on Deku. Remember what I said, I can call him Deku. You can't. Fuck you, geez, you are all over the place today. Did you forget to take your meds? Or something? I don't take meds, Katsuki grumbled. He paused, eyes narrowed. Did you? Izuku shifted his everlasting confidence, withering just a bit. I don't have them here, remember. But you can't just stop taking them. They could really fuck with you. If my ears are working correctly, I'd say you care about me and my mental health. Katsuki rolled his eyes. I'm serious, you shithead. What you do could affect my Izuku. Can't have that. Do you actually think he's going to accept your apology after everything you've done? Katsuki froze. I mean, not to be a jerk, Izuku went on. But you really traumatized him. He loves you, I know he does. But I also know that he cares about being number one. He cares about surviving, at least now he does. Do you actually think he's going to let you into his life when you could easily just ruin it all? What have you done to prove you're worthy of his time? I love him, Katsuki whispers. I know I fucked up is an understatement. But I'll do whatever it takes to keep him around. I don't even care if it means I don't get to fucking cuddle with him like you do with your Katsuki. After reading his stupid notebooks, seeing how he thinks of himself, and what he was planning to do as long as he's alive, that'll be enough. Wow, Izuku said, I've really turned you around. Fuck off. I've always been this nice bullshit. Stop changing the subject. We're talking about your fucking medication. Izuku pushed his chair back, standing up from the table. Don't worry about it. He said, I'll continue taking them when I get home. In the meantime, I want to hang out with your mom. What the fuck? Why, she's a total bitch, because she's dead in my reality. You scumbag, Izuku hissed. I want to get to know her. I know my cat is curious about what she was like since he was so young, and doesn't really remember. You should come with me. Maybe I can single-handedly patch up another one of your failing relationships. Fuck you. You really need to be more creative, dude. The dream was strange, abstract. Izuku thought his feet never touched the ground, like he was floating. And yet his body felt the soft compression of gravity, like he was asleep in his bed. Wasn't he? This was a dream, wasn't it? Nana Shimura appeared, a soft smile on her golden face. You look tired, she said in a good way. I think tired from growth. He knew better than to try to speak. While in this realm of sorts, Izuku wasn't himself. Not entirely. He was experiencing this interaction through the fraction of his soul that he exchanged for the powers of one. For all his soul piece was learning to live in this quantum world, within this quirk, piecing together a manual on how to maneuver and flow and speak. The mist claimed part of his body, but not all of it. One for all recognized him ever so slightly as the next holder, the next potential symbol of peace. The message we sent was a little jagged, Yoichi Shigaraki said, stepping forward. He too seemed to be balancing between laying and floating. It gave Izuku a headache to think about. Probably because you didn't sleep very well. Izuku thought up an apology, unable to voice the words out loud. 𝗓𝗪 seemed to understand, manifesting himself behind Izuku to slap a big palm on his back like a funny drunk uncle at a cookout. We already talked to the alternate version of you, let me tell you. He was a little fucking brat, God forbid I ever have to see his dumb face again. Izuku frowned. Sorry, 𝗓𝗪 laughed. Not a fan of freckles. All the little dots freak me out. Anyways, Nana continued. We weren't able to talk to him like we're talking to you, since One for All didn't fully recognize him as a holder. With you, well, be able to explain a little more clearly. Izuku nodded, listening intently. The vestiges told him everything they knew, from the surprise attack to Izuku's head wound to the sudden split-second reality jump. It was nice to have some answers, Izuku thought. But these answers just pushed him to ask more questions. How did the quirk know it was in danger? Does it have a consciousness? Is it sharing or stealing part of the holder's consciousness? Why go back in time? Why now? Why here? Why? Don't stress too much, Yoichi advised. We don't need to have everything figured out just yet. What you need to focus on is getting back to Yuyui to have Eraserhead cancel the quirk. Then we should be brought back to our current time and rightful location. Izuku nodded. He didn't like having his questions go unanswered, even if it was only temporarily. But he couldn't argue with Yoichi or the author, since it seems they had no idea what the hell was going on either. Izuku had to admit it wasn't a very comforting thought. But it was a thought nonetheless, and Izuku wasn't going to take it for granted. By the sound of it, he could have been dead. If it wasn't for the reality jump, the thought of death wasn't appealing to him anymore, not after properly deciding what to do with his future career and sorting through his feelings for Kaken. He was going to be an independent hero, not an overused commercialized symbol. And he was going to beat the living shit out of Bakugo Katsuki, and then confess his feelings, because Izuku knew that Katsuki was a good person. Well, he could be. Maybe it was partially his fault that Katsuki turned out the way he did. Izuku had idolized the boy growing up, determined to see that sliver of awesomeness he knew was there somewhere deep down. Izuku had longed for Katsuki to be his savior, for Katsuki to grant him some wish like a genie, or fix him up like a fairy godmother. He had waited and waited and waited, sitting through beatings and insults, just hoping for Katsuki to turn himself around. Izuku never spoke up, never stood his ground, never even thought he was worth the trouble. If he had been more assertive, would Katsuki have stopped? Of course, Katsuki's behavior wasn't revolving around Izuku. There were many factors, like his mom's parenting and society's views on powerful quirks, and Katsuki's own chemical imbalance within his mind. But Izuku was a small part of it. He could have done Katsuki a favor. More importantly, he could have done himself a favor and stood up for himself instead, just waiting for things to change, because they never did. Katsuki's behavior had only mellowed out. He was still rude, still cruel, still snappy and impatient and derogatory. If he really did care about Izuku like the alternate Katsuki had claimed, then he needed to get his shit together. Izuku wasn't going to sit around and take it anymore. Katsuki could be a good person. He could be the love of Izuku's life. All he needed was a little push and a few punches in the face. Maybe a good kick to the balls too. Izuku, honey, Inko called, gently knocking on her son's bedroom door. It's Monday, time for school. Izuku groaned and rolled out of bed with a painful thud. He dragged the blankets with him, begrudgingly getting to his feet. Izuku garbled, "Sorry mom, it'll be out in a second. Are you still feeling sick? You can stay out another day. If you're not up for classes, I'm sure you won't be missing anything." Izuku shook his head, opening his closet door and pulling out his school uniform. "No, I'm feeling better," he said. "All right, I have some blueberry muffins downstairs for breakfast." Toshinori dropped them off as an apology. Izuku laughed at the thought of All Might bowing down and apologizing to his mom for a sweet and short little chubby woman. She could be pretty scary when she was mad. He quickly slipped on his clothes, threw his blanket onto his bed, and joined his mom downstairs. They sat at the table enjoying the blueberry muffins that looked a lot better than they tasted. "Is it just me," Izuku said, "or are these unnaturally bitter?" 𝐭𝐽 nodded, gently placing her muffin down onto her napkin. "No, I taste it too. It's almost chemically, like he poured cleaning supplies in them. Oh my god, do you think he's trying to poison us?" Izuku snickered. "No, he wouldn't. He likes you too much." 𝐭𝐽 blushed. Izuku grimaced. "Mom, that's gross." "What, it is not?" 𝐭𝐽 cried. "I do think he's a very sweet man. I just can't get over the fact that he took you to a crime-infested neighbor past midnight, without even letting me know. How could I possibly be with a man who put my child in harm's way? Honestly, Mom, it wasn't Toshinori's fault at all. Kaken and I are the ones to blame." 𝗏𝐽 sighed. "Well, I know that much. You're grounded, by the way. I don't think I had a chance to tell you. No video games and you're to come straight home after school." Izuku nodded. It wasn't much different from his usual schedule anyways. "But anyway, Toshinori still allowed you to run off into that dangerous place. He drove you there. And it's not like I can just ground him, so how do I know he learned his lesson? How do I know he won't do it again?" 𝗏𝐽 groaned, rubbing her eyes with her palm. "Goodness. I didn't think I'd have this much stress from the men in my life. First your deadbeat father, and now this 𝐒𝐽𝐽𝐽𝐽 beanstalk." She giggled, picking up the nasty blueberry muffin and taking a small bite. "Well, I think you should give him a second chance," Izuku said. "I think he'll be really good for you." "But will he be good for you?" 𝗏𝐽 asked. "That's what I'm worried about." Izuku shook his head. "You shouldn't worry about me. It's a waste of your time." "Oh honey," 𝗏𝐽 gushed, reaching forward to hold Izuku's face in her hands. "You are never a waste of my time. Do you hear me? Never. You are my pride and joy, a brilliant boy with an incredibly bright mind. I'm honored to be your mother. And even though I know you're strong enough to protect yourself, I will make it my life's goal to keep you safe. I don't want to hear those words leave your mouth ever again. Understood?" Izuku nodded, teasers pricking the corners of his eyes. 𝗏𝐽 pressed a kiss to his forehead, then took the unfinished muffins and tossed them in the trash. "The bus should be here in 15 minutes. 𝗏𝐽 told him from the kitchen. "Go brush your teeth and do something with that hair of yours. I'm off to work, so I'll see you after school. Make today a wonderful day, Izuku. And for the love of God, don't get into any more trouble." At school, Izuku and Katsuki found each other like magnets. Katsuki didn't throw his arm over Izuku's shoulders like he would do with his own Izuku, but they still walked shoulder to shoulder, their smiles devouring their entire faces. "Hey loser," Katsuki teased, bumping his elbow with Izuku. "How'd you sleep? Any more weird dreams?" Izuku chuckled, bumping Katsuki back. "Yeah, I guess you could say that I got some clarity." "Sweet," Katsuki said. "And how are you feeling mentally?" "I mean," Izuku shrugged, "pretty good, actually. Took your meds?" Izuku nodded. "I can tell." Izuku furrowed his eyebrows. "I don't feel any different." "Well, sometimes it's like that. You can't notice the difference, but other people can. When you first jumped realities 2 weeks ago, you were a lot more fidgety, you had a bad stutter, and you looked super tired all the time. Plus you barely ate anything like ever." Izuku frowned. "You're making it sound worse than it is. I've been living without medication all my life, and I haven't killed myself yet. Not to burst your bubble, dude, but not committing suicide is normal for other people. Also, what do you mean by yet?" Izuku waved his friend away. "I didn't mean it like that. It's just that I've gotten a lot of stuff done without the medication. Like I got into 𝐎𝐈, and I trained really hard, and I made a bunch of friends." Katsuki shrugged. "And that stuff is great, don't get me wrong. I'm super proud of you. But don't you feel a little better now?" Izuku thought for a moment. He did feel better, more energized, brighter. In a way, his arms and legs didn't feel as heavy. It wasn't as much of a hassle to stand up straight. They were little things, very little things. But Izuku realized how nice they were. It was like he had a tiny rock in his shoe all his life. And he finally took the time to take it out. "The meds aren't something you can't live without," Katsuki clarified. "𝗏𝐽 said that you're like me, that it's partially a medical thing. I don't know the details about you, but for me, my adrenal glands are kind of fucked up." "Oh, I learned about those in health," Izuku said. "A layer above the kidneys, right?" Katsuki nodded. "Yeah, boring stuff. But my point is it's chemical, so the meds help." "Wait, you take meds too?" "Yeah, you didn't know that?" "No." The bell rang, cutting off their conversation. Izuku turned to head to class, but Katsuki caught him by the arm. "Where are you going, Deku?" "We've got stuff to do. My mom explicitly told me not to get into trouble." "Katsuki, if we're caught, we're both dead." "Keyword. If we're gonna be fine now. Simon the Uber is waiting outside." Izuku groaned, speeding after the blonde as he dashed to the entrance. He tried to act annoyed, or at least a little bit cautious. But his worry seemed to just evaporate as soon as he stepped outside. Bakugo, the driver asked, glancing at Izuku and Katsuki through the rolled-down window. He looked to be about 20 or 21 with a mutant quirk that made him appear like a reptile. He wore a light blue hoodie with a black leather jacket over it, and his hair was beyond damage, dyed a dark lavender-purple color. Katsuki nodded. The driver unlocked the doors, and the two boys piled into the backseat, smiles taking over their faces as they stuffed their school bags in the space by their feet. My name's 𝐒𝐻𝐈. Your Uber driver, obvious. Where are you two headed? Actually, you kids should be in school. 30% tip. If you keep it quiet, Katsuki said with an arrogant smirk. 𝐒𝐻𝐈 nodded, wearing a smirk of his own. Midoriya Izuku blurted, feeling extremely awkward. And this is a Bakugo. We're hoping you could drop us off at 𝐻𝐸 campus. Weird place to skip school at, but whatever, I guess. The driver laughed. You guys okay with Imagine Dragons? Izuku grimaced. He hated Imagine Dragons, contrary to popular belief, which was out of character considering his diverse taste in music. He loved System of a Down, Rob Zombie, Ricky Montgomery, Doja Cat, Pierce the Veil, Nicki Minaj, Dr. Dre, Addison Grace, The Clash, Eminem, Taylor Swift, Lil Dicky, Sex Pistols, Hamilton. If it exists, chances are Izuku liked it, and probably had at least one album memorized. But not Imagine Dragons. God, he hated Imagine Dragons. Katsuki fought back the immature urge to reply to the driver with Imagine Dragon D's nuts over your face. Time and place, he reminded himself. Find your zen, or whatever the guru guys advised. Actually, Katsuki did like Imagine Dragons. He knew of Izuku's hatred for the band, which was about 63. Why he liked them so much? Also because Imagine Dragons were good. Yeah, that's cool, Katsuki decided to say, and with that 𝐻𝐸𝐈 blasted the music, and Izuku used every fiber in his being, every molecule of strength, not to open the door, jump out, and roll into the street. When they arrived at their destination, Katsuki handed over the money, and the two boys hurried out. The high schoolers of 𝐻𝐸 seemed to be busy with classes and training, so there weren't any students milling around to point out the two middle schoolers, though technically in 2 weeks Katsuki and Izuku would be considered high schoolers too. They headed for the front gate, debating on the best way to get inside. Do you think we can just scale the fence? Katsuki asked. I mean, I can use my quirk to get up and over. How about you? Izuku shrugged. I've got a pretty good jump at 3 power, he said. I might still need a boost though. All right, Katsuki said, determined. He got into a cheerleader squat, his legs bent, and his fingers locked together to make a sort of step stool for Izuku. Izuku placed his hand on Katsuki's shoulder, closed his eyes, and stepped up. He pushed off Katsuki's hands, using just 3 of one for all to send him flying over the gate. Katsuki followed shortly after, the explosions on his palms popping like a firecracker. Katsuki helped Izuku up, and he brushed the grass and dirt off their uniforms. That was easier than I thought it was going to be, Izuku said before Katsuki could even open his mouth to agree. Someone started barking at him. Wah, what are you two kids doing here? Screamed Hound Dog. As he marched over, Izuku threw up his hands like there was a gun pointed between his eyes. Nothing, sir, we're just looking for Mr. Aizawa, or students. Hound Dog scowled. But you're not wearing 𝐻𝐸 uniforms. What do you think, stupid? Yes, Izuku thought to himself. He shook his head, his eyes soft, and his voice clear. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 had taught him how to deal with Hound Dog, the canine hero who was 𝐻𝐸's lifestyle guidance counselor. He was a very good man, but his attention span was that of a well. A dog's. Our uniforms got messed up during training, Izuku lied. Present Mike gave us these spares and said we should go ask Mr. Aizawa for backups in the meantime. Actually, I think Present Mike might still need some help cleaning up. You know how messy glitter treats can be. Hound Dog tilted his head, confused and curious. Glitter treats? Izuku nodded. Yeah, like biscuits with edible glitter. They're really good. Hound Dog smiled ear to ear. He was off in a split second, racing across the 𝐻𝐸 lawn to Present Mike's classroom, where he'd probably just end up getting even more distracted. Katsuki gave Izuku a proud nod, and they both headed to Mr. Aizawa's classroom. As Izuku expected, Aizawa was wrapped in a sleeping bag. When they arrived, the class was working on some pop quiz, and by the looks on their faces, it didn't seem to be an easy one. Aizawa peeled his eyes open at the sound of the two boys entering his classroom, and immediately he let out an irritated groan. What the hell are you two doing here? He grumbled, sitting up like a vampire leaving his coffin. I need you to cancel my quirk, Izuku said. What? Why? I thought we decided that was pointless. A girl in the front row raised her hand, eyebrows furrowed. Mr. Aizawa, why are there 2 dirty middle schoolers in our classroom? I said no talking during the quiz, Susie, Aizawa hissed. Zip it, my name isn't Susie. It's Aiko. Don't care. Didn't ask. I'm hungover and Nedzu is refusing to give me a raise, and my idiot secretary was too busy crying over his girlfriend being mad at him to do my goddamn paperwork, so I'm pissed off. And if you talk to me, it all becomes your fucking problem too, he huffed out an annoyed breath. Then turned to Izuku and Katsuki with a deadly scowl. Go on, airheads. Well, long story short, I'm the problem, Izuku said. Aizawa rolled his eyes, sinking back into his yellow cocoon. I could've told you that you wasted my time. It's a little more complicated than that, Katsuki added. Just cancel his quirk, and then well leave. Why should I? What am I getting out of it? If it's not a fucking raise, I don't want it. Katsuki plopped his backpack on the floor and started rummaging around. He pulled out a bottle of painkillers and a juice box and gave them a little shake for your hangover. He said, "We have a deal." Aizawa sighed, taking the bait. "Fine. But I better not hear any more shit from you, understood?" "Thank you so much, sensei." Izuku beamed. He turned to Katsuki, searching for words. He ended up just tackling the boy into a hug, melting in the warm embrace. "Thank you, Kat," he said. "You're the best." "Aw, don't get sappy on me, loser," Katsuki teased. "I'm serious." Izuku sniffled. "You helped me so much. I hope everything works out with your Izuku. Be honest with him, okay? And make sure you give your Katsuki a good ass whooping." "Yeah." Katsuki laughed. "I am so confused," blurted a kid from the back of the room. When Aizawa emerged from his cocoon, his eyes were glowing red, his quirk activated on the outside. It looked like nothing was happening. Izuku and Katsuki just stood in the front of the room hugging, while Aizawa glared at them, and the class tried to decipher what the hell was going on. But for Izuku, he felt himself disconnecting from his own body. It was an out-of-body experience, watching his soul and consciousness disconnect and sink into the space between atoms. In a flash, he was back in his classroom, seated at his desk, listening to Mr. Aizawa go on and on about signing up for work studies like no time had passed at all. Izuku blinked. He wiggled his fingers. He rolled his shoulders back. He squeezed the sides of his desk. He was back in his reality, not that he knew how. 1 second he was arguing with Dekus Kaken, and the next he was sitting in class. Eraserhead was teaching. Kaminari and Zero were snickering about something. Yaoyorozu and Jiro were passing notes. The class was flowing as normal. Everything was normal. Katsuki in front of him, his cat, was normal, not bitchy, not emotionally constipated, but whiny and confusing and obnoxious. He was cat patient, thoughtful, a total badass hotter. Honestly, God, Izuku could just scream as soon as the bell rang. He was gonna confess his feelings. And hopefully this time, nothing goes wrong. Izuku blinked. He wiggled his fingers. He rolled his shoulders back. He squeezed the sides of his desk. To his left, the window was intact. No signs of a villain attack. His head wasn't gushing blood. And the classroom was all in one piece, like that part had just been skipped, removed from reality. Completely looking around, Izuku realized that everyone was acting as they always were, goofing off, suppressing snickers, dozing off, just like it had always been. In front of him was Kaken, wearing that ever-present scowl that Izuku found unnaturally adorable. Kaken held his pencil carefully, making sure not to press it against his palm, so the friction wouldn't cause an explosion. He was thoughtful, like that, delicate. Contrary to popular belief, Izuku spent the rest of class just admiring the blonde before him for the first time. He left class with an empty page in his notebook. Deku-kun. "Hey." Uraraka called, chasing after Izuku. She latched onto his arm, a smile prominent against her naturally flushed face, while the rest of the student body left the school building. "Oh hey." Izuku beamed. He let Uraraka hang on to him, walking side by side with her under the semi-cloudy sky. It was nice to be back in his own reality. Izuku thought, though he did have a lot of fun with Kat. He had missed his friends. He had missed Todoroki's awkwardness, Ida's assertiveness, Tsu's gentle bluntness, and Uraraka's bubbly clinginess. Izuku felt like he belonged here, and he did. Everything was just right. And then he caught a glimpse of Katsuki from the corner of his eye, Kirishima's arm slung over his shoulders. His walk simmered down to a stop, his eyes now lingering over the blonde that he knew so well. Yet not at all. He and Kirishima were smiling, laughing. What kind of things did Kaken find funny? Did he like corny jokes or dark humor or innuendos? Did he like to tease or mock, or just observe and absorb? Why didn't Izuku know any of that? How did Kirishima get him to smile so easily? Had Izuku been doing something wrong all these years? Izuku shook his head, clearing his mind. He must have been all jumbled from the reality jump. He knew now confidently that Katsuki didn't hate him. In fact, he might love him. Of course, it wasn't that simple. There were so many things to consider, so many variables at play. But Izuku knew that Katsuki didn't harbor any negative feelings toward him. Not really, he just had trouble expressing them. Just a little push, Izuku reminded himself. Just give him a little push. Ida and Todoroki asked if we wanted to join them at the mall this afternoon. Uraraka went on. "Wanna come along?" "Don't worry, they are paying." "Sorry," Izuku said with a small smile. "I've got some stuff I need to take care of later today. Maybe next time." Uraraka frowned. But she wasn't going to argue. She saw how Izuku's eyes lingered over Katsuki, how they sparkled with admiration, how they never looked her way when he was around. Not even once. "Yeah," Uraraka said. "Next time sounds good." Uraraka watched as Izuku detached himself, waving her away as he melted into the river of students heading to their respective dormitories. Izuku beelined to the elevator, weaving past his classmates who congregated in the common area, happily blabbing about the school day. Normally Izuku would stop to listen. He loved being around other people despite the fact that he was still getting over his social anxiety. But today he had a strict agenda to him. It was now or never. He changed out of his school uniform, put his books and notebooks away, tidied up his room, and headed to the training gym. Kirishima saw Izuku approaching before Katsuki did. The two were sparring, or well, Kirishima was activating his quirk, while Katsuki fired blast after blast at him. Izuku's smile tripled in size as Kirishima noticed him ducking out of the way as Katsuki dived down to strike him. "Midoriya, hey dude," Kirishima greeted, jogging up to pull the freckled boy into a sweaty hug. Izuku laughed, awkwardly hugging the redhead back. "Hey Kirishima, how are Great Kirishima cheered, pulling back and resting his hands on Izuku's shoulders. Me and Bakugo were just sparring. Yeah, I saw your quirk is amazing. Seriously, I've never seen anyone block one of Kaken's blasts with just their forearms and come out unscathed. Aw, thanks man. I've been training pretty hard recently, it's definitely showing. Keep up the good work, hey shitty hair. What the fuck? Katsuki screamed, propelling himself over to the two other boys. He panted with anger, his forehead creased, and red eyes sharpened. You're ditching me for this fucking nerd. Really, not ditching you bro, Kirishima chuckled. Calm down. I am calm, Izuku snickered clearly. Katsuki looked about as pale as a piece of paper. He wasn't used to Izuku talking back to him. Not now, not in middle school, not even when they were toddlers. He was pissed at how embarrassed he was. And he shoved Kirishima's head out of the way to get a better look at Izuku. It was strange seeing his Kaken. After a little over 2 weeks with Cat, Izuku had almost forgotten how feral Kaken was. His nostrils flared, eyebrows knitted together, breathing heavy. Kirishima, could you give us a few minutes real quick? Izuku asked, his voice as sweet as sugar. Kirishima nodded, visibly eager to leave the tense atmosphere. He took his water bottle and jogged over to the locker rooms, leaving Katsuki and Izuku alone in the cavernous gym. What the fuck? Katsuki said, still breathless. Izuku smiled. I missed you, Kaken. What the hell are you talking about? Izuku tilted his head, frowning. You don't remember what the reality jump? Izuku said. What the fuck are you going on about, you shitty? Katsuki was cut off by a sharp punch to his jaw, then a kick to his stomach that sent him flying backwards, and once he was lying flat on his back, groaning, Izuku pounded the toe of his shoe right into Katsuki's groin. He kept his promise, beating the living shit out of his crush and childhood bully, squashing any chances of the blonde having children in the future. Kirishima peered his head in to see what was happening, but he quickly made the decision to leave them alone. If he had learned anything over their past year at UUE, feral Deku wasn't one to be fucked with. The redhead could hear Katsuki's screams from outside the gym. When Izuku decided Katsuki had enough, he grabbed Katsuki's arm and jerked him to his feet. The blonde was dizzy and confused and in pain, but memories of time spent with a different Izuku flooded his mind. He didn't know when or how, but he knew it happened. That chunk of time existed somewhere outside of this reality, but not in another reality either. It was like that period was carved out and set aside, a piece belonging to another puzzle. Yet it was in Katsuki's possession. It belonged to him, his chunk of time, his and Izuku's. It hit him like a tidal wave, and Katsuki really couldn't handle it, on top of the forming bruises between his legs. All the while Izuku was beaming like the sun. When Katsuki gained his ability to properly stand up without swaying side to side, Izuku punched him right between his eyebrows, knocking him out cold. Katsuki woke up in his dorm room with Izuku sitting at his desk, flipping through a hero magazine. The blonde groaned and massaged his temples, squinting at the bright lamp in the corner. He waited a few moments to sit up, marinating in the memories of a sassy, sarcastic asshole version of his childhood friend. It was so unbelievably strange, between the curses, the all might slander, the fourth wall breaking, and even Katsuki's first kiss. Izuku stole his first kiss. Not even Izuku from his own dimension, Izuku from another dimension. Oh, you're awake, Izuku beamed, dropping the magazine on the desk. As he hurried to Katsuki's bedside, he dragged the chair with him, sitting as close to the bed as possible. How you feeling? Katsuki scowled up at him. You're an ass. You didn't answer my question. Katsuki scoffed. After remembering everything he went through with alternate Izuku, he felt guilty about being so mean, but it was too out of character for him to act nice. So shit. And since when did he give a fuck about acting in Charcater? And was that a typo up there? How come the stupid ass author didn't fix that? I tried to bring you to Recovery Girl, Izuku said, but she told me it's her day off, so I brought you to your dorm instead. Katsuki continued to glare at him. Don't act like you did me a favor, shitface. You're the one who knocked me out. Well, yeah, but you deserved it. Wah. I didn't even do anything, not in the moment. No, Izuku said with a small laugh, like they were recalling a fond memory, and not when Katsuki got his ass beat an hour ago. But after all the years of torment, it was the least I could do, and who knows, maybe there'll be more beatings in the future. Horrified, Katsuki paled. You are a psychopath, he muttered. Izuku's smile brightened. I'm so glad you think so. What the hell happened to you, Deku? Ah, that's another thing. I don't want you to call me Deku anymore. I'm fine with everyone else calling me that because of the reinvented meaning. But you can't, because the baggage. Where the hell is all this coming from, Izuku? Izuku, the word felt foreign on his tongue. What are you playing at? Izuku tilted his head, confused. What do you mean? I mean, where the hell is all this coming from? Yesterday, you didn't give a shit about what I call you or how I treat you. I did, Izuku said. But I thought that was just normal. I thought that's how things were supposed to be. But the truth is, I met a better version of you, a version that was nice and patient and thoughtful. He was still a pain in the ass, sometimes. But he didn't hurt me, he cared about me. And he told me that deep down you care about me too. Katsuki shifted in the bed, avoiding eye contact. He had his own heart-to-heart conversation with alternate Izuku, and it made him realize that he did need to change his ways. He was hurting Izuku badly, and things didn't have to be that way. He didn't want things to be that way. He wanted cuddles and bickering and kisses. Shit. and now he was blushing. Katsuki scrambled for something to say to reduce the oncoming wave of embarrassment. But his throat was scratchy and his head was pounding, and he couldn't focus on anything besides the freckled boy, looking at him with fondness, with admiration. With determination. "We don't have to be friends," Izuku said, breaking the silence. "But you need to respect me." "I don't want to be friends," Katsuki muttered. Izuku frowned, sitting back in the chair. "That's okay. No, it's not Izuku. I meant I want shit. I don't fucking know how to do this." Izuku laughed. "You didn't have relationship training with the alternate version of me." Katsuki rolled his eyes. "Not exactly. He was a fucking douchebag. Just told me to stop being an asshole, which I could figured out on my own. But you didn't." Katsuki pursed his lips. "I was working on it well. Either way, we're making progress. Yeah, and I'm happy about the progress." "Me too," Izuku gasped. "Really?" Katsuki covered his eyes with his palms, a low chuckle leaving his mouth. "Yeah, you idiot. One step at a time," Izuku said. Katsuki nodded. A gentle layer of silence fell over them, comforting. Izuku smiled. "𝐭𝐽, I missed you." "I missed you too." "Ah, did the little quirkless boy get lost again?" "Blasty should put you on a leash. Maybe then you'd stop running into walls." Yoraka scoffed, digging her heel into the toe of Izuku's shoe. She kept him in place, a devilish smile painted on her natural flushed face. She used her quirk to float Izuku's book bag just out of reach, while Ada stood behind her, clearing his throat in a failed attempt to hide his laughter. Izuku shifted, using his free foot to kick Yoraka's shin, forcing her to recoil and release his foot as well as her hold on his things. His bag came crashing back down, but Izuku was quick to grab it, sidestepping past the two of them and hurrying into the horde of students filtering out of the main school building. Within the 3 minutes after the final bell rang, Izuku had lost track of Kat, making his whole confession plan go up in flames. He was more sure than ever before that Kat needed to know about Izuku's feelings. As long as he was honest and communicated effectively, everything would work out. He didn't want to wait anymore. But it seemed like every person on the planet was trying to stop him, and frankly, he was getting fucking sick of it. Deep breaths, Izuku told himself. "Don't freak out. We got everything under control." "Kat, wait up," Izuku called, finally catching up to the blonde. He latched onto Katsuki's arm, pulling him away from the class. "A dormitory entrance." "Hey loser," Katsuki said with a small laugh. "I was just gonna text you and see if you wanted to train, and maybe grab something to eat." Izuku's heart buzzed in his chest, as if he needed an emotional notification. He was well aware of his feelings for his best friend. He wasn't some fucking airhead like 𝗧𝗪𝐴. He snickered at the thought. Really, he hoped those two got it together. But right now it wasn't about those two, it was about him. And Kat, his beloved snarky blondie, his biggest inspiration, brightest motivation, toughest rival, and literal partner in crime. Izuku knew, since they were toddlers, that he never wanted to leave Katsuki's side. He admired that fighting spirit, that incredible stubbornness that rivaled his own. They were two hard-headed idiots, two combative geniuses, two boys whose lives had been tangled together since infancy, and if all went well would stay tangled together for the rest of time in this reality. And the next, and the next. "Are you okay, Zuku?" Katsuki chuckled, tilting his head a bit. "You're just kinda staring at me." He couldn't think of anything else. He surged forward, eyes closed, hand resting on Katsuki's shoulder for balance. This kiss was nothing like the one 𝗧𝗪𝗏 had shared with Izuku, that was drunk and lost and mixed up and misplaced. This was electric. Kat's lips were soft, Izuku's were rougher and chapped, and the gentle warmth radiating off of him greeted Izuku as strongly as it had the very first time all those years ago. In a way, Izuku knew this day was coming. He knew, even as a child, that had fallen in love with this blonde idiot with a big brain and a loud mouth that taught him how to punch and kick and curse and scream. There was no avoiding it. And in a way he was relieved, even if somehow Kat hated him afterwards. At least Izuku got to feel this rush. At least once he was able to claim Katsuki's lips as his own. At least once. It was more than enough. And not nearly so all at once. It was fulfilling and starved and content and empty, all tied together with a reassured bow. The kiss held so many emotions, so many thoughts, so many questions. The soft-spoken words that followed held all the answers. Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat. Yeah, his hand was curled into the fabric of Katsuki's shirt, their lips still only centimeters apart. "You kissed me," Izuku smirked. "Yeah, why, yeah, that's what I asked you, goofball. I kissed you, and you call me a goofball?" Katsuki laughed, his breath tickling Izuku's lips that had just been pressed against his own seconds ago. "Are you saying you're not a goofball? 'Cause that's just a lie. You're the biggest goofball of them all." Izuku smiled. "I guess so." "Do you want to be a goofball with me?" Katsuki paused. With every second that passed, Izuku inched backwards, and Katsuki hated that he wanted Izuku close against him, hugging him, kissing him, smiling at him, laughing with him. God, he wanted to hear that laugh and the sarcastic, borderline bitchy comments that came with it. He loved that little freckled monster. He loved him like the ocean loved the sand, like the flowers loved their roots and their petals. The kiss gave him a way to express that. So he stole another, and with it, he took Izuku's breath away. Izuku pulled away. After a few seconds, his green eyes wild. "I'll take that as a yes." Katsuki laughed, soft and raspy and blissful. Not really sure what you were asking. But yeah, of course I like you," Izuku whispered romantically. "I mean, Hence the kiss, the dots are connecting now. Thank you, Katsuki teased, and Izuku went on. I want you to be my goofball, your goofball, yeah mine. Oh, my boyfriend, oh, if not it's fine. We can stay friends, you think I want to stay friends after that? Katsuki blurted. I'll be the best damn boyfriend you've ever had. PFFT, well, see about that. Does this mean you got over Merku? Ha. That's funny. Get over Merku. I could never. If she pulled up right now and asked me to marry her, I'd probably chop you up into 19 pieces, pee on you, throw you in a trash compactor, and run away with that sexy bunny to Paris, or… Katsuki shut him up with another kiss. This time he was attacked by a tidal wave of memories. An alternate version of Izuku, a riff in their realities. A million confusing things that he didn't want to think about. He could assess all that later. For now, he was busy. For now, it wasn't about Deku or Kaken or All Might. Not the bullies or the villains or the corrupted hero commission. No, right now it was about them. Their story. Their secret. Just Katsuki and Izuku. And Shinsu Hitoshi, who was fighting the urge to throw a rock at those two morons. He grimaced, cursing himself for once again being in the wrong place at the wrong time.